Chapter 13:20. As expected, there's a trap for intruders. Han Dong wasn't flustered at all. He stared at the skeletons carrying the sin steels and carefully observed the changes happening to them. When the sin steels are activated, the threads of sin seeping out from the steels will weave a black cloak for the skeletons. It's similar to turning a skeleton soldier into a ghost. The sin steels are still on their backs. Is the sin steels the main body, or are their skeletons the main body? As soon as he finished speaking, Sally raised her black goat leg. Her powerful strength, combined with the curse hidden within, shattered 3 sin steels in a row. Following the destruction of the sin steels, the cloak dissipated and the skeletons scattered on the ground. The so-called sinful spirits were dead. From the looks of it, the sin steels did indeed belong to the main body. They just needed to continue destroying them. However, Han Dong, who had been a spectator since the beginning, still noticed a rather dangerous detail. Sally, wait. Directly shattering the sin steel seems effective, but it's actually a multi-layered trap. My eyes can roughly see that when you shatter the sin steels, the sin hidden within will invade your body through a very secretive thread form. It doesn't seem to affect you, but it's actually slowly accumulating in your body. When it accumulates to a certain point, it might cause you to carry the sin steels or suffer a sin backlash. I don't know the specifics, but don't destroy the sin steels for now. Sally was surprised. How can that be? The black goat blood flowing in my body has very strong anti-magic properties. Also, I can't feel anything invading my body. This isn't an ability of our world. Since it's an arrangement of fate, the invading individuals must be able to target us to a certain extent. Then what should we do? Directly destroy their skeletons? Let me try. Han Dong stepped forward and stood in front of Sally. At this moment, the sinful spirits carrying the sin steels had already attacked. A total of 4 of them attacked from the front, left, and right. The carving knives in the sinful spirits' hands were also wrapped in sin. Once they were gathered together, they would also accumulate sin. Howls that sounded like they were expounding their sins continuously came from the hood. The sinful spirits had already reached the attack range. Han Dong was very calm in the face of the situation. He clasped the bird mask on his face with his right hand and slowly took it off. The demon eye at the center of his brows had already formed a whirlpool pupil. He raised his left arm and stretched it forward. The camouflage was completely removed. The withered and fluttering bandages of the undying arm were completely exposed. The 4 letters engraved on his arm were constantly emitting the luster of the sticks, D, H, A, T. The raven staff, the symbol of death, drilled out from the palm of his hand. He grabbed it and struck the ground with the bottom of the staff. Sha sha sha. A ripple of black sand spread out from the bottom of the staff and instantly spread throughout the entire cellar. Han Dong's whisper echoed in the ears of every sinner. Domain release. Reincarnation underworld. The essence of a domain was the manifestation of an individual's consciousness. Through their powerful consciousness, they could influence other objects and their surroundings. Mythical body could use the mythical drawings in the consciousness to touch the rules of the world and cover reality with the domain. However, as the world dominator, node holder, Han Dong could also achieve this to a certain extent. Reality intervenes. How is this possible? Sally felt the real sand coming from the bottom of her feet and was extremely shocked. The moment the domain was released, the area under each sinner formed a whirlpool of quicksand. Unable to resist or repel, they were all sucked into it and turned into a part of the underworld. Snap! With a snap of his fingers, the cellar returned to its original appearance. Only some sand remained on the surface of his left arm. All the sinners floating here had disappeared, and even a trace of sinful aura did not exist. Nicholas, won't you be like me, attracting sin into your body? Death is an attribute shared by all things. In the true sense, death can annihilate everything, including this kind of sin whose nature has yet to be understood. Using death to deal with this kind of dangerous thing that has yet to be understood is the best way. It's just a little energy-consuming. Sally was stunned by such power. The young man standing in front of her now was completely different from a year and a half ago. Sally couldn't help but ask another question. How did you achieve? Reality intervenes. This is an effect that can only be achieved by the consciousness of a mythical body. It's related to the fate system that I chose. Among the thousands of worlds that are related to fate, I have the sovereignty of a world and can use world power to a certain extent. This, while Sally was surprised, she was also more and more interested in exploring fate. Let's go take a look in this room first. Sally continued to lift her sheep's hooves and kicked the stone door that had lost its effectiveness. A secret room similar to an archive room slowly appeared. Count, who was in the form of a blood dog, didn't do anything other than sniffing. He was also completely surprised by Han Dong's domain just now. Nicholas, why do I remember that your domain wasn't like this before? Yes. The domain changes according to the individual's attribute. The introduction of the vortex I made my ability more inclined towards the black vortex. The effect of the domain just now was much stronger than before. The effect was excellent. Yes. This Count has seen it for himself. Yes. Boom. The stone door was kicked open. When Han Dong stepped into the secret room, he immediately came to a conclusion. There are individuals that don't belong to our world who have been doing research here for a period of time. They should be using the heretics here to carry out experiments related to sin and turn them into sinful spirits, similar to the craftsmen who once carried out individual transformations in London. The relevant research manuscripts have been destroyed. Hopefully, some clues can be found. Han Dong's intuition told him. What happened here most likely had nothing to do with a craftsman and involved another world. If he could find the root cause, he might be able to expose the Black Tower's invasion plan in advance. When the magic eye was 100% open, he could see some of the remnant threads of the past sins. Following the traces of the threads and some traces left on the table, Han Dong slowly restored some images in his mind. A cave. The back of this village is connected to a hidden cave. Let's hurry over and take a look. Maybe the London game has already started. The invaders may have come to our world in advance without us knowing. Due to some kind of world intervention, the old kings didn't know about it. What? At this moment, boom, there was a violent explosion from above. The simulation battle had begun. The knights had already launched an attack on Grimm and Hope, who were in the church. Hurry up! Such a big commotion will definitely alert the enemy. However, when we came to the cellar to clean up the sinful spirits here, we might have already alerted the enemy. Han Dong grabbed Sally's hand. Whoosh! They teleported to the cellar's exit. Unexpectedly, as soon as they opened the cellar's door, the sharp blood-red sword shadow slashed down head-on. Clink! There was a crisp sound of collision. The blade was blocked by an equally hard object. At the same time, it was accompanied by a rain of blood in the room. Han Dong didn't stop it. Sally also followed behind without moving. The one who blocked the sword was Count. The dog's mouth was biting a bloody long sword. The blood level between the two was about the same. Senior Lucius, I have something urgent to report. You must stop the current simulation battle. What's the matter? Lucius's eyes were sharp. His other hand was already condensing bright red magic, ready to seal the blood dog in front of him. Suspected world invaders. What? Chapter 1321. Miss Sally, this kick must be strong enough. Sally imitated the human habit and made an okay gesture. She had raised her leg countless times today, aiming her hooves at the wooden door of the church compartment. Due to Han Dong's request, the power of this kick was much stronger than before. A terrifying phantom of a giant elephant appeared behind Sally, like the most terrifying goat in the Black Forest. So strong. Lucius's forehead was already covered in cold sweat before he kicked. He instinctively constructed the crimson shield to block the incoming powerful impact. Boom! The violent sound echoed in the village and through the valley. The church built of black rock completely collapsed, and the battle inside and outside the church froze because of the loud noise. A large number of knights were setting up a barrier outside, and the elites with the highest combat power were fighting Grim and Hope head-on. Grim looked over unhappily. What's Sally doing? Everyone was having fun. Why did she make such a big commotion? Han Dong quickly stood in front of Sally and explained the discovery in the cellar to everyone. A simple explanation immediately made both sides stop fighting. The intruders, could it be the remnants of the group that escaped from London last time? How boring. If they were just ordinary craftsmen, they could be killed in 2 or 3 moves. Seeing that Grim didn't care at all, Han Dong threw the bone fragment over. I just found this in the secret room. I suspect that it may not be a craftsman, but a life form from another world. Grim used a lot of strength to bend the bone fragment and needed to use his ability to annihilate the bone fragment. Interesting. This kind of hard bone doesn't seem to belong to that group of rubbish craftsmen. Han Dong looked at the knights. Senior Charlie, can you seal off the area within a 10-mile radius with the village as the center? In addition, arrange for a faster knight to report the situation to the City of London. The 3 prime generals and I will immediately go to the cave connected to the village to investigate. I suspect that the intruders are hiding in the cave. Don't you need our help to investigate the cave? With the 4 of us combined, we are confident that we can fight against a mythical creature. Even if we are in danger, we can use many methods to escape. If we go to a sealed space like a cave with the knights, the origin substance will be exposed one after another, and it may cause accidental injuries. The knights' overall coordination is better than ours. Only you can establish a lockdown area in a short period of time. If there really is something in the cave, the battle just now has already alerted the enemy, and they may choose to retreat. All right. Charlie realized the seriousness of the matter and immediately ordered the knights to seal off the surrounding area. At the same time, a ghost wolf of the Behemoth Knight Regiment quickly rushed back to London. Green Hope, let's go. Han Dong drew a spatial array and sent everyone to the front of the cave. This familiar sense of transmission. It suddenly reminded me of the beautiful memories of the time when I worked with Pop. Pop was really strong, but it was a pity that he couldn't change his mind. If we can pull him into the team, it will be a lot more convenient. Although Han Dong really wanted to know what kind of conflict had occurred between the first and second origin substances, now was not the time to discuss such matters. Let me lead the way. I have a rough understanding of the other party's attributes in the cellar. It is related to a sin. Sin? It's all these rules and regulations again. These invaders are really bored. Glenn had a nonchalant look on his face as he whistled and walked into the cave. However, the moment he stepped into the cave, the crazy force residing in Grim's body immediately sent a message. To be exact, it was a message from the mythical body Frowny Face. There is a very dangerous aura floating here. Although it is very faint, it is enough to threaten you. If you are in danger, we will come out to help. Mythical body? Not sure, it is only a danger warning at the moment. The possibility of a mythical body is not ruled out. Grim's originally indifferent expression immediately turned into a kind of crazy smile that was about to tear his face apart. A large number of tentacles even drilled out from between his teeth, capturing the information in the cave. If there is a mythical body, you must not make a move. It is rare to encounter a strong enemy from another world. I want to have a good time. Okay. Listening to Grim's order, a horrifying entity that was crawling out of Grim's body slowly retreated. The cave was already filled with a strong aura of sin. Dark stream-like lines were flowing in the cave, The density was several times higher than in the cellar. The Sin monument was like a plant, constantly growing from the ground and the walls, creating an absolute shielding area. Such a situation was enough to indicate that the individual hiding here was ready to welcome the guest. When Han Dong found the cellar previously, he must have alerted the enemy. Grim, did you sense anything? Nicholas, you've found an interesting place. I've never seen such an attribute before. There might be a mythical enemy hiding in the deepest part of the cave. Mythical? Han Dong immediately stopped and considered whether to wait for reinforcements to arrive. Unexpectedly, Grim's arm reached out and forcefully dragged Han Dong over. What are you worried about? Didn't we directly defeat that lump of gold a year ago? Now that you have opened the door, and I have become much stronger, even if it is a stronger mythical body, can't I defeat it? The nature is different. Moreover, it is extremely difficult to kill a mythical body. The last time we were able to kill a golden saint was with the help of the special passage in Grimm's body. We did not kill it directly. If the opponent does not plan to fight us directly, but instead uses a preset trap to deal with us, or directly opens the plain passage, the situation will become uncontrollable. Your madness is too restrained. It is necessary to bring you to the palace and train you properly. By the way, have you forgotten that I have an army living in my body? If the opponent is up to something, I will entrust them to deal with it. Alright, let's go. Another world. A large number of forks began to appear in the depths of the cave. The fluctuations of the space index were also very abnormal. The interior of the cave had undergone space expansion. The space had been enlarged by 50 times, or even more. Han Dong's demonic eye played a key role at this time. Being able to accurately spy on the direction of the sinful lines, he could follow a clear path forward. In front of us is the core of the labyrinth, all the sinful lines spread out from there. Han Dong was halfway through his explanation. Clop, clop, clop. The sound of horse hooves came from the deepest part of the labyrinth. Every time the horse hooves stepped on the ground, it was as if it was stepping on the surface of everyone's hearts, heavy and oppressive. Then, there was a strange sound, as if the windpipe was stuffed with stones. A hoarse male voice squeezed out from between the teeth. Sinners, we welcome you. As soon as Grim heard the sound, he could not wait to step into the centermost area of the labyrinth, and was swallowed by a strange energy. Han Dong and the rest could only follow. In the blink of an eye, the cave had directly turned into an ancient battlefield full of sin monuments. Intervention of reality? Mythical body? A strange creature riding on a black warhorse was staring at everyone through the pitch-black hood. However, what Han Dong was most concerned about was a giant sin monument that was at least 10 meters tall. The deliberately strange words on it had begun to resonate. Chapter 13:22. The words on the surface of this giant sin stele are producing a very subtle spatial response, but it's not like a portal. Mary, can you perceive what this is? Considering that the first prime would come into contact with humans, Han Dong also carried Meritus in the form of a battery in his body. In case of an emergency, Grim could be forcibly teleported away. Meritus, who was essentially a void toad, naturally had a better understanding of space than Han Dong. I can't understand the words on it, but from the fixed space fluctuations, it should be a kind of coordinate stone used for spatial positioning. If it involves dimensional issues, the space coordinate system will become very complicated. Nicholas, you should also know. If we want to teleport to an area, we often need to go to the area in advance, or know some information about the area, or have related objects. If we want to teleport across planes, positioning in advance is necessary. However, this is the first time I've seen such a large, coordinate stone. This should be used for ultra-long distance, multidimensional spatial positioning. Cross-plane positioning. Han Dong took a deep breath. If this was the case, the London game might unfold in a different way, and in a way that was completely unfavorable to his side. Combined with the current situation, Han Dong only had one answer. Grim, release the crazy army in your body. We must immediately destroy this coordinate stone. However, Grim had no intention of borrowing forces at all. He just excitedly walked toward the mythical body, expressing his attitude very plainly. What army? There's no need to borrow. I was wondering why this feeling was so familiar. It turned out to be a coordinate stone. Such a large stone, it should be able to perform a plane level positioning, right? It's getting more and more interesting. Nicholas, let's join forces like a year ago to defeat the mythical body? Grim, who was walking in front, elegantly extended his right hand, indicating that Han Dong should join forces with him. Unstable factors. This was the more troublesome part of cooperating with Grim. Grim would not care about the current situation at all, and did not care about what was the advantage. He only cared about how to achieve madness and self-satisfaction. If Han Dong wanted to forcibly persuade Grim, it would eventually lead to a break in the relationship between the two. In this case, there was only one way. He relied on his own strength to defeat the mythical body from an unknown plane and personally destroy the coordinate stone. However, the feeling and pressure from the mythical entity in front of him was completely different from that of the Gold Saint. When he was stared at by the mouth of the hood, he felt an indescribable sense of danger. It was necessary to explain the issue of size ratio in advance. This mythical body that was entangled in sin had a physique that was about 3 times that of a normal human. The same was true for the black horse beneath it. The black cloak covered his entire body, and not a single exposed part of his body could be seen. His demonic eyes were fully opened. Han Dong stared at every part of the man's body seriously and made deductions based on the information he had gathered. The sinful spirits in the cellar also had a similar cloak. Since he's an individual from an unknown world, I can't limit my thinking. I have to look at him with an open mind. Can this cloak be seen as a part of the body or a skin? Beneath the skin corresponded to the real body. It was definitely not an ordinary human skeleton, but a kind of essence that could represent its mythical nature. Perhaps the real body that was covered by the skin corresponded to the real danger. The mythical body was completely different from the Gold Saint. Not to mention the difference in quality and level, the danger itself was extremely high. The Gold Saint focused on defense, and this thing was quite deadly. The more he stared at the cloak, the more Han Dong wanted to peek inside. Unlike the previous holy level invasion, I could infer the attributes of the mythical craftsman through the characteristics of the ordinary craftsman. If you attack recklessly, you might be in great danger. Just as Han Dong was thinking about the battle plan, Grim completely disregarded the issue of life and death and rushed forward. At the same time, Grim's crazy voice came one after another. Nicholas, hurry up and give me some domain support. Before you open the door, you could rely on your self-consciousness to fight against the Gold Saint. You should be able to deal with it here, right? I need some space, it's too oppressive here. Okay, the best way now was to let Grim, who was basically immortal, try to attack and obtain information. Clang! The staff hit the ground hard. The black sand spread out and forcibly covered the sin area. The sin monument that was affected also turned into sand. However, the expansion of the black sand slowed down by more than 10 times. Moreover, Han Dong felt a sense of burden, so much so that his body was bent over. The side effect of the domain collision. Some kind of substance similar to the sin monument was condensing on Han Dong's back. The pressure was so heavy that Han Dong could not straighten his back. At this moment, an arm gently rested on Han Dong's shoulder. A fragrance that symbolized pregnancy drifted from the side, like a moist tongue from a female, licking the surface of his ear. For a moment, the pressure on Han Dong's back quickly disappeared, and the large amount of dopamine secreted also made his body in a state of excitement. Let me help you. My domain should be effective. Thank you, Miss Sally. Domain overlap. This was a relatively common technique, and Han Dong and Grimm had used it together before. Due to Sally's arrival, an oasis that had never been seen before began to appear in the expanding black desert. To be precise, it should be a black oasis. Plump trees rose from the ground, and the sap overflowing from the surface of the trunks formed pools that symbolized pregnancy. There were even groups of baby-like creatures crawling out of the pools. Although the scene was strange, the effect was excellent. The ground under Grimm's feet had been replaced with black sand, and the restrictions no longer existed. At the same time, a large figure appeared beside Grimm, and Hope followed. Hope? Aren't you going to let me try first? The essence and ability of a mythical body are still unclear, and you may be killed directly. Although it's crazy, and I like it very much, it's meaningless if you died. Hope's eyes were unusually firm, and he was not afraid of death at all. Or rather, he did not think that a mythical body could destroy his body in one blow. No, Grimm. I'll create an opportunity. After saying that, Hope displayed an extremely terrifying explosive strength, and his calf muscles exploded as he rushed forward in an instant. In the infinitely compressed body, every muscle tendril was exerting the maximum effect. There was no fancy technique, and there was no choice of direction. Hopper chose the simplest method: punch from the front. He clenched his fist, and the surface of his right arm showed the appearance of muscle blooming. Layers of muscle tissue and tendrils squeezed out of the skin and spread out on the surface to form layers of external muscle tissue. He rose into the air, and was at the same height as the mythical body. Arm swing, the body stretched. The whole body was like a body of art. Every inch of muscle, every joint, and every piece of the body was stretched to the maximum extent like a bowstring. He punched. In the path of the fist, the space was distorted, and even small space cracks were torn open. The power of this punch was beyond the mythical body's expectations. A strange, skeletal finger stretched out from the sleeve of his robe, and a burst of obscure scriptures came out from the hole in the hood. Buzz. The enchantment spread out. A piece of enchantment that was like a cloth and mirror full of scriptures formed at the fingertip. Not good. Han Dong sensed a dangerous aura. While supporting the territory, the tendrils that grew out from the back of his head began to draw a void array on the ground. At this time, Hope's fist had landed on the surface of the enchantment. However, the expected impact did not occur, and there was not even a loud explosion. The scripture enchantment built by the mythical body's fingertip seemed to have an extremely strong impact absorption. It was rapidly absorbing the impact of Hope's punch. At the same time, the scriptures that were like living beings were invading Hope's arm in reverse, injecting sins. Ah! At this time, Hope let out a shocking roar, completely ignoring the impact absorption and the invasion of sins. Since one punch was not enough, he would punch again. He continued to punch the surface of the enchantment. The most terrifying thing was that with each punch, the power contained in it was increasing. Break. Hope's right arm exploded due to the excessive accumulation of power. The tendrils of muscles that were wildly overflowing continued to strengthen his right arm, and his whole body had reached 3 times its original size. The punch hit, breaking through the impact absorption limit, and completely tearing the enchantment. At the same time, a burst of starlight flashed. A void tendril wrapped around Hope's abdomen and brought him back to Han Dong. Hope's arms were full of scriptures that symbolized sins, and they had to be dealt with immediately. The moment the enchantment was torn apart, Grimm connected it perfectly. Hope, you're very strong. Let me take care of the rest. Grimm met him head-on. With his thin body, he faced a mythical being that was several times his size, sitting on a black horse. Whoosh! Grimm's entire right hand reached into his ear hole, and as blood spurted out, he pulled out a long black saber with his arm as the handle. In an instant, The black horse became flustered, stomping on the ground and neighing. "Let's entertain the guest from another world, Miss Lyle." Without waiting for the mythical body to create the next defensive enchantment. With a swing of the saber, time and space intertwined. The black cloak that Han Dong deduced as skin was cut open from the middle. Whoosh! An unknown bone fluid stained the blade. "Oh, is this your true form?" Chapter 13:23. The power of a legendary weapon lay in the fact that it could touch the world's rules and pose a threat to a mythical being. Generally speaking, only individuals who had the ability to create myths could control legendary equipment. But there were also a few exceptions. They could use their own consciousness to suppress the divine consciousness of the legendary weapon and control it by force. Grimm was one of them. Moreover, Miss Lyle, who was used by Grimm, did not have any rebellion or resistance. The weapon's consciousness also fully recognized Grimm as its main body. This slash fully exerted the power of a legendary weapon. Swoosh! Wherever the blade passed, the space was torn apart inch by inch. A series of sharp, fingernail-scratching sounds that were enough to tear the eardrums echoed in the cave. The cloak, that Han Dong deduced to be skin, was completely torn apart by the blade. This mythical being from an unknown world had officially revealed its true form. Even Grimm was stunned for a while when he saw the real body under the skin. He had never seen such a combination of weirdness, rationality, and God. One thing was for sure, this mythical being was stronger than the golden saint that he had faced before. Thousand sins. Night, the individual under the cloak. It was not riding a black horse, but growing on a black horse. 1. A dark gold, thick spine grew on the horse's back. Ring-shaped ribs were distributed on the surface of the spine, a total of 108 ribs. At the top of the spine, the skull was nowhere to be found. A dark red silk thread drilled out from the neck, weaving a blood-red circle of flesh, similar to an angel's halo at the top. 2. 108 ribs. Thousands of white papers were suspended by red lines. They were recorded in an unknown language with related sins. In order to see the contents of the white papers, a white paper lantern was suspended in the center of the rib cavity. 3. 4 arms. 2 of the arms stretched forward, holding the skull of the knight. The skull had 2 fresh eyes and thick black hair on top. The other 2 arms were spread out in an up-and-down position, forming a seal with both hands to construct a formation to block Grimm's slash. Unfortunately, the formation was forcibly cut open by Grimm's slash. Crack! The bones were broken. 4 ribs, along with the white paper tied by the red lines, fell together. The horse neighed. The skull in the palm of his hand was also constantly clenching its teeth, caw-caw-caw, to express its pain. Glenn became even more excited when he saw his opponent's posture. What a strange posture! If I can make it into a specimen, I can use it as a trophy decoration for my future palace. As he spoke, a large number of wild tentacles spilled out of his left arm, attempting to entangle his opponent's body. His right hand was still holding Miss Lyle's arm tightly, and he was ready to attack at close range. Miss Lyle's attack could affect and even break the rules. As long as there was enough attack, it could damage the essence of a myth. As long as he completely tore apart the other party's mythological map, it was also possible for him to kill the other party. The tentacles wrapped around him. Grimm revealed a different kind of crazy smile, a smile that thirsted for battle and slaughter. The blade reached the target's skeletal torso. "Glenn, get out of the way. Be careful of your skull." At this moment, Han Dong's shouts came from behind. Under normal circumstances, Han Dong would allow Green to attack freely. After all, Green's immortality was still very strong. However, he was trying to figure out some of his opponent's characteristics through his attack. Just now, the mystic eye captured a process of energy gathering. The white paper hanging between the ribs was sending out strands of sinful threads. Red line, ribs, spine, arm, the sinful threads converged on the skull in the palm of his hand. Although Han Dong did not know what the opponent was going to do, the danger index was constantly rising. Huh? Skull? Following Han Dong's reminder, Grim turned his gaze downward. The skull had already opened its mouth. There was no energy being thrown out from the mouth, nor was there any devouring effect similar to the toad demons. Instead, it stuck out a tongue full of nails. The tongue slapped up and down, matching the opening and closing of the mouth. A strange language was coming out from the mouth. Such language seemed to be able to change the rules. Nonsense. Immobility. Clang. The sound of a bell being struck spread out in the air. The effect of the rules was acting on Grim's body, including the tentacles floating outside, as well as Miss Lyle in his hand. Everything related to Grim was fixed in the air. Even the most basic movement of blinking could not be completed. Without waiting for Grim to make any movement, the black horse turned sideways and raised its hind legs. The horse's hooves heavily kicked Grim's body. Whoosh! Flesh and blood splattered. Grim was directly crushed by the kick. This scene also made Han Dong and the others look dignified. Cold sweat covered their heads as they each prepared to use their strongest move. However, something unexpected happened. After kicking Grim's mythical body, it did not attack Han Dong and the others. It only glanced at them through the skull's eyeballs. Using Sin to weave a new cloak to cover its body, it urged the black horse to turn around and leave. The area where the horse's hooves landed immediately turned into a space passage and disappeared. It ran away? It clearly has the upper hand. Why didn't it kill us all? Could it be that it sensed the reinforcements outside? Han Dong quickly adjusted his state, allowing the gray matter that was spreading all over his body to settle down. At the same time, he stuffed all the tentacles that were scattered on the ground back into the back of his head. When Grim was killed, Han Dong was already prepared to borrow his soul. At this moment, a wave of discomfort came from the depths of his ear. Whoosh! Mucus splattered. A slender arm covered in mucus stretched out from Han Dong's ear hole. The head and the thin body were also squeezed out one after another and fell to the ground. It looked a little weak. Ouch! This guy is so strong, much stronger than that lump of gold. What he just used should be a high-end move similar to incantation, which can directly affect the rules through words. Only a few mythical bodies I know can use this move. It felt like being pressed down by a huge mountain, and I couldn't move at all. Nicholas, can you use the space sensing to catch up? That kick just now hurt me to death. I must kill him. Can't do it. This guy is very cautious, and the space traces have been erased. Forget it. Anyway, we will meet again in the London game, and then kill him and let me lie down for a while. Han Dong did not intend to rest and pulled Hopper to the coordinate stone. One punch. Boom. The huge coordinate stone tablet was crushed by Hopper's punch, and the positioning was erased. Staring at the broken coordinate stone, Han Dong did not feel relieved at all. He always felt that what happened here would not affect the conspiracy behind. Let's go back quickly. This matter must be reported immediately. Nicholas! Don't worry, look at you, you don't look like a man who has experienced opening the door at all. So what if you are a mythical body? So what if you have a coordinate stone? These fellows thought that they were very smart. They set up unexpected invasion plans through coordinate stones in unknown corners, and then secretly studied some inferior hybrid demons. They even came up with a perfect invasion plan in their head. Do you really think that the guys above do not know about this matter? Not to mention Father. Everything that happens in our world, the omniscient and omnipotent in the void knows clearly. The reason why they did not interfere and did not tell us is that this is part of the game, or the prelude of the game. They can come however they want, just like the last London game. We just need to kill them all in the end. None of them can go back. Chapter 1324. The Black Tower, Middle Level, World Conference Hall. Located in the deepest part of a giant building, one needed to go through multiple levels of permits to come here. Each permit was connected to the management of the Black Tower. What happened here was absolutely confidential to the outside world. Currently, there was a discussion about world invasion. In front of a pentagonal conference table made of black crystal, there were 5 individuals with different postures, auras, and even different dimensions. Han Dong was very familiar with the characteristics of one of them. Wearing a white whirlpool mask, symbolizing the upper echelon of the Black Tower. Wearing an open-neck shirt, her cleavage was also quite obvious. This upper echelon with a female figure seemed to belong to the same level as the them Han Dong knew. As for the other 4, they represented 4 world. Multiple invasion, a year and a half ago. Due to the exploratory invasion launched by the Saint Level world, to some extent it was a complete failure and even lost a mythical body in the end. Although the Saint Level world also received the corresponding reward, the world rating dropped because of this and lost face. At the same time, the Black Tower also began to re-evaluate the hybrid demon world and sent out recruitment posts to many worlds. A total of 11 worlds that met the criteria responded to the recruitment. The Black Tower selected 3 worlds, based on the compatibility of the worlds, comprehensive ratings, and related attribute. They would unite with the Saint Level world and launch a large-scale invasion through the gap torn in London last time. Sitting at the conference table, except for the Black Tower's upper echelon, were all high-level leaders who controlled large world nodes or above. The reason for the corresponding recruitment was not because they had a grudge against the hybrid demon world. They were also very afraid of the hybrid demon world with the serial number 01, which even the Black Tower could not control. It was just because they were given too much. The world recruitment posts issued by the Black Tower were only accessible to the node holders of large worlds or above. It was equivalent to an open destiny mission. At the conference table, the mission file, about the thickness of a palm, was placed in front of the 4 node holders. The basic requirement could be summed up in one sentence: invade S01 within the limits of the gap. Due to the fact that World S01 is completely sealed off from the outside world, even if the Black Tower activates the strong connection program previously retained in the hybrid demon world, it can only obtain very little access rights. However, a year and a half ago, the invasion of the Saint World was not a complete failure. Due to the invasion of the Saint World's attributes, whirlpools, thorns, etc., the assimilation of the hybrid demons by the Saint World, as well as the invasion of some unknown substances, this series of actions greatly increased his access right. Today's gap access authority can accommodate more individuals or high-level beings to invade through a fixed access port, London. However, although the basic requirements were very simple. However, the overall mission document took more than 10 pages to explain the various requirements of the details. There was one point. The Black Tower requested that the 4 worlds involved in this matter must send a king. With the current access rights and the new methods developed by the Black Tower, they could allow up to 4 lower-level kings to participate. Naturally, the rewards were very generous. Regardless of the outcome, the participants would receive special access rights from the Black Tower, import and export tax exemption, as well as an increase in the number of world participants. Large and above worlds are different from small and medium worlds. Worlds of this scale will establish a two-way channel with the Black Tower. Gates of fate will randomly appear within the world, allowing fate participants, or even Black Tower accessor to appear. In other words, large and above worlds have already been connected to the Black Tower. They can normally access the world network created by the Black Tower, freely interact, and use the fate system as a path to upgrade. Extremely talented individuals will also be granted the right to enter the Black Tower and become employees. Obtaining special access rights will greatly increase the world's development speed. In addition to the basic rewards, There will also be more special access rights and world resources depending on the outcome of the invasion. Direct participants of the world's invasion will also receive 3 times the rewards of a normal fate event. Furthermore, the Black Tower also strictly stated that this event will be in accordance with the balance principle. In other words, during the invasion, the opposing hybrid demon forces will be limited to a certain range. The number of old kings involved will not exceed 4, and not more than the lower kings, and the number of mythical entities will also be limited. It was precisely because of such attractive conditions and the balance principle that the Black Tower publicly announced. Even though S01 was extremely dangerous, there were still many worlds competing to participate. At the conference table, 4 node holders were reviewing the mission documents and expressing their opinions. 1. The representative of the Saint Craftsman is a king-level existence called Titan in the Saint world. His beard is burning like a flame, and his core temperature has reached 5 digits. However, he can limit the high temperature within his body and will not affect the outside world. 2. The first thing to be seen is not an individual, but an altar made of skulls and black rock layers. A baby is floating above it. The individual that looks like a baby has actually lived for tens of thousands of years. He is constantly switching back and forth between the state of flesh and bones, and a circle made of blood floated above his head. It symbolizes the original sin. There is no need for any substantial movements to flip through the mission documents on the table. 3. It is difficult to associate the appearance with an individual. It is more like an object, a metal ball floating in the air. She has another name in her corresponding world, which is also what everything calls her, a matrix. What is even more strange is, the corresponding table in front of her was originally made of a black crystal material, but it evolved into a transistor structure in a short period of time. All kinds of microelectrons are moving and colliding in the transistors embedded in the table at high speed, and through this collision, a new atom is constructed. Finally, an automatic reading device is formed on the table, holding up the mission file and opening it for her to scan directly. Questions about the mission are also directly transmitted in the form of an electronic document to the executive wearing the whirlpool mask. 4. An old man covered with black dragon scales on the outside of his arms, back, and cheek. It seems that because he is too old, even sitting here, he needs to support himself with a dragon-headed cane. Or perhaps this old man is not used to the human body. After all, his body is a giant dragon comparable to the size of the world. At this time, the baby floating on the surface of the altar, through the blood-stained threads in his mouth, weaved the scene that just happened in the hybrid demon world on the table. Black Tower's special language came out from his mouth. The backup guide has been destroyed. I suggest you speed up the process of world transfer. An elegant female voice came from under the executive's mask. Well, we have also received the information here. The one who destroyed the guide was the main participant in the last invasion. One of them is a Black Tower employee who has just been promoted not long ago. The old man with dragon scales on the surface of his body carefully stared at the picture made of silk threads and sighed. Cough, cough. It is indeed the first superworld in the sequence. Relying on the body of the door opening, they dare to confront the myth head-on and even cause substantial damage. What a difficult mission. I think we can increase the stage mission reward. After all, the risk of contamination is a bit high. Chapter 1325. The female executive wearing the whirlpool mask changed the direction of her leg after receiving the opinions of the world representative. As for the interim rewards, it can be increased by 10% at most. However, the time of the world transfer will not change. The Black Tower is very clear about the world order of S01 and the attitude of the higher-up. They will not take too many countermeasures because of the discovery of the coordinate stone, and they will even feel excited because of our secret actions. This is also where their real threat lies. In addition, I want to emphasize to you all, the real threat you are facing is not the pollution of the hybrid demons, but the hybrid demons themselves. Since the Black Tower has opened the communication channel for your 4 worlds, I hope you can deepen your understanding of each other and cooperate before the invasion fully begins. According to your current, shallow interaction, it is impossible to cooperate with each other during the war. I can even assert that when you face the hybrid demons on your own, you will be defeated, and no one will survive. Although we will give out the basic rewards as usual, your world's rating will also drop significantly. Now there are many worlds with good potential waiting to be promoted. Understood. I will personally urge and supervise the interaction between the different worlds. At present, the cooperation between the Dragon Clan and the craftsmen is quite good. We have used dragon scales, rocks, and treasures in exchange for a large number of craftsmen's creations that have never been touched before. I hope to further strengthen the cooperation with the other 2 worlds. The old man was the first to express a supportive attitude, and his eyes also looked at the infant and metal ball in front of the conference table. Who knew? Compared to the Black Dragon old man's verbal response, the metal sphere known as the Mother was immediately taken out and put into action. An interaction plan that had been drafted early was immediately turned into an electronic document on the table and handed to the other 3. According to the data collected by the Mother, it calculated an interaction plan that optimizes interaction, cooperation, and benefit distribution, and can achieve comprehensive cooperation in the shortest time. In the end, the meeting ended in a state of satisfaction. The worlds will also greatly strengthen the interaction between each other in the near future according to the plan formulated by the Mother. The 4 forces will slowly condense into a whole. As the 4 world managers left, the office lady with long legs and an open-necked shirt stretched her waist and didn't even bother to look at the relevant documents on the table. She was only in charge of this meeting today because the manager had something to do, so she was temporarily arranged to be here. Just as she was about to take off her mask and lie down on the chair for a short rest, a voice suddenly rang out. "Knock, knock, knock, why are you here now? The meeting is over, and I will submit the meeting progress later." The door was not pushed open. Instead, a pool of white mucus seeped into the room from the bottom of the door. The liquid formed a white chair beside the female executive, and the remaining liquid formed a man in a white suit, wearing the same whirlpool mask as her. His perverted hand directly touched her thigh. "I specially came here to talk about our private matters. This kind of situation is rare." Pa. With a backhand, he slapped the man's face. He didn't use much strength, but it caused her head to explode, and white liquid splattered all over her body. However, this kind of damage would not harm its essence. The scattered white liquid quickly condensed back to its original form. "If you dare to do this again, the next slap will make you suffer." "Irene, you're still so fierce." "Don't talk nonsense. If you have something to say, just say it. Don't tell me you came here specifically to find me. I'm not in a particularly good mood right now, and there's a high probability that I'll record the questions you're about to ask and report you. I know you know me. I just pulled out this flux fluid from the slit. You should need it, right? Don't call me by my name. The only one you can call me is I. Okay, Irene, you." The female executive stared at the liquid on the table and finally swallowed her anger. As she accepted it, her tone also changed. "I'm in a good mood right now. As long as it's not too illegal or touching on the core of the problem, I'll consider answering you. Is the Black Tower planning to use that technology?" "I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but the higher-ups will guarantee the balance principle." "Thank you. I have one more request. Miss Irene should be considered as the person in charge of this operation. I hope you can help me locate Han Dong, an official employee. I need a full location. In the S01 world, He's called Warren Nicholas. Give me a serial number. You don't really want to use this kid as a bargaining chip, do you? Bargaining chip? No, don't make wild guesses. Han Dong is a very interesting young man. I just want to pay attention to him alone. If possible, I want to cultivate him into the next him. Using him as a bargaining chip alone won't have any effect on those old guys. I want to do something different. Are you crazy? Using S01 as an embryo? The pervert's hand once again fell on the shredded thigh, but this time there was no slap. Looking at the Black Tower, is there anyone who can replace me? If I die one day, how long can that group of core engineers remain stable? Besides, what's the original intention of our highest consciousness? You can't have forgotten, right? Okay, that's all for now. I've already given you the serial number. Remember to synchronize the location data with me. I want to see this kid's performance in the battle. When the pervert's hand moved away. At the same time, a pool of white liquid was left on the surface of the girl's shredded thigh, forming Han Dong's serial number. The plane was cut back. London, Han Dong's manor. Han Dong, wearing a lab coat, worked with Dr. Swollen and Professor West, former resident of number 99, to study and treat Hope's injuries. Hope broke through the mythical barrier head-on, and his arms were completely invaded by sin. After a few hours, they finally drew out the sin through liquid affinity and collected it in the catheter. How strange. This sin attribute can be autonomously connected to the brain through the nerves, through reading memories and thoughts to judge the individual's sin, and finally feed back the actual punishment to the individual. For example, Hope often devours other living creatures to fill his hunger. The affected parts will shed flesh, and he will even feel the pain of being bitten. Doctor, try to complete a research report on sin in 3 days. Okay. Han Dong was a little tired. He took off his lab coat and planned to go back to sleep for a while. On the way back, he also recalled Green's words. Green is right. The essence of the London game is not simply to win the invasion war, but to convey the will of absolute hegemony to the Black Tower through the war. There is no need to care about the disadvantage at the beginning, and no need to care about how much preparation the other party has made. As long as they dare to touch our sovereignty, we will crush them all with absolute strength. This is the best response. Chapter 1326. London. There was only the last day left before the start of the game. In the neighborhood where the iceberg was located, in the villa closest to it, Aslan was perfecting a series of battle plans in her private office. She suddenly stopped writing and looked at the door. Eugene, it's the first time I've seen you go out so early in the morning. What's the matter? I'm just going out for a stroll. When the reply ended, the stench from Eugene also disappeared from the building. Eugene was in a bad mood today. He carried a sarcophagus with weapons sealed in it and walked alone in the sewers of London. It took him a long time to find a corner filled with fungus and crawling with rats and insects. He even found a moldy bedsheet to cover himself with. Yes, he liked this kind of environment. Filth and decay brought him physical pleasure. Just as he was about to enjoy a pleasant time alone. Gurgle gurgle, the sewage pool began to bubble, and a gray, viscous substance kept overflowing. An evil aura that originated from ancient times spread out in the sewers. The thick gray mist even made Eugenius a little uncomfortable. Staring at the evil substance that kept pouring out, Eugene gritted his teeth. Even Kit's underground force has arrived. Why hasn't that group of schooners come yet? What is the ruler doing? That's right. A big reason why Eugene was unhappy was that his corresponding force hadn't arrived in London yet. With the appearance of the evil substance that kept pouring into the sewers, he was the only one left among the 10 prime forces. If they hadn't arrived by the time the game started, he would have to rely on Aslan, and his next series of actions would be extremely passive. Moreover, there was one more thing that made him very upset. Some time ago, Eugene had been paying attention to humans, because he hated Handong. He even planned to do something through the plague. About a month ago, lurking in the streets near the human residential area, Eugene was looking for the best way to release the plague. He accidentally caught a glimpse of a knight who was covered in a cloak. Upon closer observation, he found that the knight was surrounded by an air of death that Eugene had never seen before. It even felt like it didn't belong to the world of the living. Curiosity drove Eugene to use the ancient eye in his body, intending to observe this human carefully. Unexpectedly, the other party also turned his black hood at the same time. The moment their eyes met, Eugenius completely deleted the plague plan in his mind. At the same time, it formed an unforgettable memory for him. A cold man's face was hidden behind the black hood. But in this man's eyes, a kingdom of death was reflected. Just looking at him gave Eugenius a sense of being pulled, as if countless arms from the underworld were dragging him. He even felt as if he had taken half a step into the world of death. It was a kind of absolute suppression that made it hard for him to breathe. He felt as if his throat had been cut open by a sickle, and he could die at any moment. King's Stage, when Eugenius' consciousness returned to normal, more than an hour had passed, and the human who was looking at him had already left. So Eugene's coming to London did not seem to be a good thing. Under the supervision of Mother Evernight, he didn't even dare to vent his emotions on the dark races. Damn it! There was still one day left, so he should be able to make it in time. Let's go to the South Pole and see what's going on. What is the Sovereign doing? How could he make such a low-level mistake at such a critical moment? Even if some of the modifications aren't complete, you should at least rush over before the game starts. Eugenius gritted his teeth. Several dark green tentacles grew out of his back, and he left the city at the fastest speed possible. Using the portal that Shugus had built 100 kilometers outside the city, he reached the island closest to the South Pole. There was no time to take a boat there. No longer caring about whether or not it would infringe on the sovereignty of the sea, Eugenius used his tentacles to weave a green raft and quickly sailed along the sea toward the South Pole. However, just as he entered the South Pole floating ice area and got rid of the sea fog, he was stunned. What's going on? The Meat Mountain, that should have appeared in front of him, had disappeared, leaving only the barren South Pole glaciers. No matter what angle Eugenius used to search, there was no trace of the Meat Mountain. Impossible! The Meat Mountain is a legacy left behind by the ancients at their peak, a perfect kingdom that gave birth to us Shugus. Even if it's abandoned, it's still one of the strongest barriers on this planet. How could it just disappear? Could the invasion have happened here? What happened when I wasn't here? Eugenius suddenly remembered that just a while ago, his connection with the Shugus Dominator had suddenly been cut off. He thought that the Dominator was rushing over with the Shugus army, but he didn't expect the situation to be like this. His hometown had disappeared without a trace. Coupled with the various circumstances that had happened recently, Eugenius, whose mood had completely fallen to the bottom, knelt on the shore of the South Pole with a dim look in his eyes. A series of terrible images flashed through his mind. The negative emotions in his heart were spreading like a plague. Out of control, the human body couldn't contain them, and tentacles crazily squeezed out from his eyes, nose, armpits, and other parts. His original form was revealed. The nightmarish dark green body, the amorphous body emitted the most extreme stench in the world, and tens of thousands of pus-like eyes emitting green light were constantly forming and disintegrating on its surface. The tentacles slapped the surface of the glacier and moved toward the center of the South Pole at the fastest speed. Now, Eugenius had turned into the most terrifying life form in the world, and his rationality was devoured by negative emotions, and everything he encountered along the way would be disintegrated and devoured. When Eugenius arrived at the center of the South Pole, The meat mountain that symbolized an important civilization and represented the Shugus base had completely disappeared. However, there was a man standing in the center of the polar circle. A man in bartender clothes with a head like the starry sky seemed to be shaping something in his white-gloved hands. Negative emotions overflowed his body, and Eugenius, who had turned into a primitive beast, couldn't think rationally. He directly regarded the bartender as the culprit who had destroyed his home. Countless dark green tentacles gathered in front of him, forming a huge mouth filled with the ultimate plague. Eugenius' human body also appeared on the surface of the tongue, holding a stone spear that symbolized the end of ancient times. He was determined to completely kill the individual in front of him. Ripples spread out. All attacks stopped when they approached the bartender. The legendary level spear couldn't pierce through the membrane that flickered with starlight. A feeling came from the bartender, and a voice that seemed to come from an alien deep space echoed in Eugenius' mind. Eugenius, you've come at the right time. The meat mountain is very important to this game. I've thought about it for a long time and I've decided to pack it up. I hope to see your wonderful performance in the game. The voice was like a falling star, quickly sinking into Eugenius' mind, eliminating his negative emotions, and returning his rationality. The dark green primitive body all retracted into the human body. Eugenius recalled his disrespectful behavior just now, and his legs went numb with fear. He immediately knelt on the ground. Don't mind it, take it. It's yours. Floating in the bartender's hand was a black mass that looked like a meat mountain. It was currently slowly floating toward Eugenius. As Eugenius stared at the mass of meat in front of him in a daze, starlight enveloped his body. In the blink of an eye, he had returned to the dark forest outside London. It was also at this moment. A black curtain descended from the sky, completely enveloping London. Is the game about to start? Chapter 1327. An hour before Eugene returned from the South Pole. London. British Library, a VIP reading room that was completely closed to the outside world, but had the highest authority and access to all the books in the library through the interactive system. A special reader was sitting there. Since he came to London, he had spent almost all his time here reading and immersing himself in books. This person wore a large trench coat with a large number of quaint books hanging inside and outside. He had a galaxy brain that was unique in the world. With translucent skin and bone structure, outsiders could clearly see the vast brain structure, which was like a miniature universe. Dense, fine, and complicated blood vessels of the stars were arranged inside the head. A brain that looked like the Milky Way was rotating at a uniform speed. Second prime. Book of Wisdom. Pop Mendar compared to other primes' active activities, development of forces, competition, or dating after coming to London. Pop seemed very honest. Since coming to London, the total time he left the library was no more than a day. Besides, the forces behind Pop corresponded to a group of mysterious organizations involved with the secret cult of the Void. All of them lived in the library. They might be scholars who looked quite normal. Or they might be some kind of book that did not exist in the serial number of the collection. Or they might be bookshelves in the corner by instrument. This was a group of people who maintained a connection with the Void and maintained an endless thirst for knowledge. Compared to other forces, they might not be good at killing, pollution, or parasitism. Instead, they leaned toward a kind of versatility. In their eyes, Pop, who had an extremely high reserve of knowledge, was the temporary ruler of London during the game. As expected of the World Library that maintains a connection with the Miskatonic University. Many of the books here are unique. Just by reading them, you can get information about the origin of the Dark inhabitants and the overall framework of the Dark secret technique. During Pop's reading period, the door opened. Hyde Darius, who had a long face, wet hair hanging on both sides, and fish gills that moved rhythmically with his breathing, carried a large bag of fresh food bought from the seafood market. Hyde was only a little interested in reading. He preferred to make a series of luxurious sashimi to pass the time while Pop was reading. It also solved the food problem for the two of them. Hyde, what's the situation outside? The evil filth hidden underground has occupied the sewers. There's a mythical body hidden inside that makes me very uncomfortable. I'm afraid it involves the most ancient evil matter. Other than Eugenius, all the relevant forces have arrived. Bop closed his book, got up and walked to the window. Then there's no problem. The enjoyable reading time has come to an end. I wonder how the game will start? Until now, the Gate of Destiny in London hasn't shown any signs of activity. It's a little strange. Hyde wasn't worried at all. Currently, he was making exquisite seafood sashimi with a high-pressure water line shot out from his fingers. He was even wearing an apron and a headscarf, looking quite professional. A short while later, a portion of sashimi, emitting a pungent smell and embellished with black vegetables that looked like organs, with squid tentacles still wriggling crazily, was completed. The surface of each piece of sashimi was engraved with a strange magic formation, which was used to activate the most primitive taste of the ingredients. See fishy taste times 10. Innsmouth style, Hyde's original sashimi. This sashimi could make an ordinary person instantly degenerate into the filth of the ocean. If his body and mind could withstand the bombardment of the dishes, he might even become a deep one. Bop, on the other hand, gladly took the food. He wasn't repulsed by the food made by Hyde, because any food that entered Bop's mouth would disintegrate into the most primitive cosmic particles. It was also because of this that Hyde had a very good impression of Bop. However, just as Bop put the first piece of sashimi into his mouth, swoosh, a meteor streaked across his brain. It wasn't that the dishes stimulated his brain, but that he had sensed something in that instant. This is... He put down the plate. Bop's body dissipated like particles, and in the next second, he appeared in the London celestial body. Boss Bop, what's the matter? The red-haired King Star Vader rushed over immediately. For an instant, I captured 87 spatial senses of different frequencies. They were extremely minute but very stable. They all came from the periphery of London. Did you discover anything here? No, the celestial body's detection circle didn't show any abnormalities. Bop gently pressed his hands to his temples, and the astral fluid in his brain immediately began to spin at high speeds, entering a state of deep thought. About a minute later, Bop sent a voice transmission. These guys want to use this method to avoid the influence of fog and pollution? Vader, try your best to lower the celestial body to the lowest altitude. The game might start in an unexpected way. With that said, Bop immediately moved to the next area. He was teleported to the bottom of the River Thames, a room where he could speak directly to his mother. This is the situation I've analyzed. The realization rate might be 83%. Mother, please use the highest authority of the land deed to stabilize the City of London. In the worst-case scenario, we might lose more than half of our forces before the game starts, and we might lose an important base like London. Bop's warning turned into reality in a short period of time. Curtain of Night. His biological mother, NG, used the king-level land deed to descend a completely sealed barrier. This meant that the City of London had entered the highest state of alert. This is the game about to start? Eugene, who had just been teleported back from the South Pole, tensed up when he saw the curtain descending from the sky. He immediately unleashed his fastest speed and forcefully flipped over the city wall before the last black curtain descended. At this moment, the entire City of London had fallen into absolute darkness. Whether it was icebergs, celestial bodies, sewers, or areas of human activity, nothing could avoid the influence of the darkness. The darkness was like the mouth of a ferocious beast, directly swallowing London. The dark residents lit the largest candles in the basement to welcome the arrival of the darkness. At the same time, they also expressed a strong desire to fight, revealing terrifying expressions and postures. Eugene curled up in the dirty street, sacrificing an eye from his mouth, trying to see the scene in the darkness. Is this the combined effect of the king's domain and the king-level land deed? It's so terrifying. Even my eyes can only see the basic situation within a range of 10 meters at most. If it's not an ally, they will be directly swallowed by the darkness. When the last curtain fell, all the curtains began to shrink inward, gradually forming a sphere, just enough to cover the celestial body and the city wall. At this moment, the city of London had turned into a black sphere completely isolated from the outside world. There were no city walls, streets, moats, and so on. It was a solid hole. It turned out that Bob's perception was right. About half an hour passed. Strong spatial fluctuations came from outside the dark forest. The coordinate stones, scattered in different areas, were activated, and pillars of spatial light broke through the restrictions of the plane and descended into the hybrid demon world. This was a brand new technology that belonged to the Black Tower. It was used in the current area through the gap torn open by the last London game. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the London Basin and the City of London within the dark forest had been completely separated from the hybrid demon world and were being sent to a border area. Chapter 13:28. In the manor. Han Dong, who was resting, immediately got up when he felt the darkness coming. Grim was standing in front of the courtyard with his arms fully spread out. At the same time, he made the inconspicuous holes on his body completely expand. As the darkness fell, he began to dance crazily. The strange posture coupled with the terrifying holes made one's scalp tingle. Han Dong stared at the falling darkness outside the window. Even though he was an ally, he felt a sense of oppression. This is... Sally, who was leaning on his side, explained. The synergistic effect of the king's domain and the king's land deed is a unique means of our world. Sovereignty is divided in the form of a land deed, and then carried by the old king for a long time, so that the land deed is similar to the property of the body. The enclosed space constructed in this way can even be completely isolated from the original world for a period of time, mainly to avoid worldwide disasters. I don't understand why the game hasn't officially started yet, but Mother used such an ultimate means? Just as Sally was puzzled, Han Dong felt an unusual spatial fluctuation and quickly combined it with the closure of the City of London and the matter of the coordinate stone. After a joint analysis, he came to a terrible conclusion. Could it be they didn't intend to invade from the Gate of Destiny from the beginning? Instead, they used the foundation laid by the previous invasion and the positioning given by the coordinate stone to carry out a worldwide transfer or spatial isolation with some kind of superb spatial means. If they can really do it, they can avoid a large part of the threat from the hybrid demons. The geographical advantage will also be turned 180 degrees. Thinking of this, Han Dong expanded his voice to the entire manor with the right of a lord. Attention, a super long-distance plane transmission is coming. Go to the basement or hide in the Scarlet Manor as soon as possible. As soon as he said this, the emergency channels set up all over the manor were used to deal with this situation. Grim, do you want to come in? I don't need to. If it is really like you said, there will be a long-distance plane transmission, I really want to experience it. As soon as he finished speaking, first, there was a very strange feeling of time stagnation. He felt that everything around him had slowed down. This was followed by a strong ringing in his ears. Buzz! Even if the surrounding environment had been covered by darkness. But the physical feedback brought by the sense of touch made Han Dong feel that his body was being pulled and lengthened. The indescribable spatial transmission speed made his body appear in a bar state. F***CK. Where are we teleporting to? Although Han Dong could withstand such a dimensional warp, he was still shocked out of his wits. Han Dong had never experienced such a long-distance transmission before, and the overall transmission time was very long. Sally also held on to Han Dong's arm tightly, feeling a little uncomfortable mentally. This kind of leap is bound to be accompanied by an indescribable space storm. Along the way, they would have to pass through a large number of dimensional slits. If it weren't for his mother creating the curtain of darkness, with the help of the king-level land deed, the entire city of London would have been torn apart, and most people would have been sucked into the dimensional slits and died. So long. It feels like I've been transmitting for a long time. Why haven't I arrived yet? If this continues, even if they have the protection of their mothers, some hybrid demons won't be able to hold on, right? After an unknown period of time, the discomfort at the level of thought gradually subsided. The planar crossing was complete. The city of London, which was wrapped in darkness, fell into a short period of dead silence. There was no one on the streets. This was followed by waves of painful wails, vomiting, and diarrhea. It was not until half an hour later that everyone slowly left the building or shelter. At this moment, his mother's voice came from the darkness. The gentle but dignified voice went straight to everyone's brain. It was as if the lips hidden in the darkness were attached to each resident's ear, speaking one by one. Just now, some kind of extremely high-level unknown space technology came to our world, forcibly stripping the world of London and the surrounding areas. At present, we are unable to contact the original world for the time being. Preliminary estimates suggest that the area we are in is a lost world, and there are no hostile or other life forms in the surrounding area. Due to the consumption of a large amount of energy during the planar transmission, the curtain of darkness will be removed in 1 minute. I hereby announce that the London game has officially started, and the city has entered a state of war. At the same time, representatives of different forces, please ensure that you are still in the dark area after the curtain is removed. I will establish a temporary network through the darkness and conduct a simple meeting. Lost world? How can it be? Han Dong was shocked when he heard this term, and his face became quite ugly. As an employee, Han Dong had seen this term by chance in the Black Tower. Simply put, it was a kind of eliminated world. Nicholas, what is a lost world? Sally, who had been staying in this world and couldn't touch the world level because of her level, didn't know the meaning of this term. Sally, you should know that there is more than one world, and there are different sizes and levels, right? Well, I do know this, and I also know that the Gate of Destiny is a passage to other worlds, and there seems to be an organization trying to integrate and manage all the worlds. Well, that's easy to understand. The so-called lost world refers to a world that has exhausted some of the world's energy, and the rules and system can't continue to be maintained, and the whole world is about to collapse. There is no possibility of repairing such a world, and no life forms are suitable to live here. The reason why the world has become like this may be because of a large-scale internal struggle, or because of the influence of the rampagers, or because of a strong impact from other worlds, etc. The world is about to collapse. Then will we follow? If we can't leave before the world collapses, we will be caught in the planar gap, and the survival rate is very low. How much time do we have? It depends on the stage of the lost world we are currently in. Mother should explain the situation in detail in a temporary meeting later. At this time, when the darkness that shrouded London gradually retreated, the sky above everyone's head had completely changed. It was no longer the eternal night fog that everyone was familiar with. A total of 5 bright stars were suspended in the sky, far and near, and there were no clouds to block them. The extremely strong light directly shone on the ground. If a human was exposed to such an environment, their skin would melt and bones would melt in a few minutes, and they would be roasted into a pile of charcoal. The City of London had the protection of this king-level land deed, and it formed a protective circle that was equivalent to the ozone layer, effectively blocking 99% of the light. Even so, there were still a large number of residents who felt uncomfortable, and they had to use parasols and dark candles to stabilize their bodies. Even the hybrid demons who didn't belong to the dark element would feel a burning sensation on their skin. Just as Han Dong had guessed, the geographical advantage had been completely reversed. This lost world should have been specially prepared by the Black Tower for the hybrid demons. However, there was still a piece of good news. The second origin, a Pop Mendo's brain, despite being separated by countless planes, could still receive information from the other side of the void, and maintain a certain connection with the original world. Chapter 1329. Through the dark web, established by his mother, the 10 great protoplasms, the human representative, great demon leader, Lithas's identity, and Han Dong's consciousness were connected together for the meeting. Just as his mother was about to start the meeting to discuss the current situation and the recent battle plan, Pope, whose brain was in the shape of a transparent galaxy, suddenly raised his hand and interrupted the meeting. Everyone, wait. I seem to be able to receive signals from the main universe. As soon as he said this, even his mother was shocked, and the tentacles that grew out from the corner of her eyes twitched slightly. Even with the London title deed, she could not sense any information from the hybrid demon world. Even during the world cataclysm, such an exaggerated regional shift did not happen. She did not expect Pope to stand up at such a critical moment. Amazing! Han Dong praised from the bottom of his heart. He was also a space ability user, so he knew very well that London City's shift this time had crossed many planes. He did not expect that such a long distance and isolation from the planes could still be connected through the void. Grimm's legs were crossed on the desk as he stared at Pope's starry head. Pope, you seem to be much stronger than before. Do you want to team up with me later? If we work together, we can definitely kill the enemy directly. Pope paid no attention to Grimm. Instead, he faced everyone and said, Please wait a moment, I'm trying to strengthen the signal connection. It corresponded to the British Library where Pope's main body was located. The rooftop area. The members of the Secret Void Society formed a 3-ring formation and surrounded Pope in the center. Their hands were intertwined in a triangular shape. The tentacles on the teachers' faces floated rhythmically as they chanted the secret text. Starlight, bubbles, fleshy spheres, and other substances began to form under everyone's feet, applying a wave of void energy to Pope's body. At the same time, in the consciousness meeting room, Pope's brain burst out with a strong brilliance, and strands of strange colors overflowed from his brain. In the middle of the conference table, a cluster of indefinite bubbles with the origin of chaos was built. Teacher! Pope immediately lowered his head. At the same time, the participants present lowered their heads, showing the most primitive respect and the most ancient awe. Even Grimm showed a hint of a sneer and slowly lowered his head. As expected of an existence that can touch the depths of the void. Even Father would find it difficult to do so. The bubble floating in the air shrunk and changed in size, emitting an ancient sound from the other side of the void. Through Pope's contact with the environment, I have analyzed the lost world that you are currently in. His luck was not bad. The current world was still in the early stages of disintegration, and the basic rules were still functioning normally. Only a few areas showed signs of chaos and spacetime crack. It would take about a month for it to completely disintegrate. At the same time, as time passes, this world will become more and more unstable. 1 month! When they heard this, many people felt very uncomfortable. All the participants present had extremely powerful life-saving means, but they were completely ineffective against the collapse of the world. Once they fell into the dimensional crack, they would die without a doubt. Since Pope was able to establish a connection with me, it means that there is a chance for everything to turn around. I will summon all life forms related to the void, and within a month, Build a spatial sensing and transmission device in the void that can capture planar signals. There are two things that you need to do. 1. Collect the world core. This material is often related to the foundation of the world. Even if it is broken, it still contains all the information about the current world, including the coordinate information that we need. There is a high probability that the core of the lost world has been broken, or even taken away in advance. Since the other party did not hesitate to consume the energy of several worlds, borrowed some advanced technology, and carried out the regional stripping of London and moved it here, they must have made preparations in advance. You need to consider this point carefully. 2. Once the core is collected, you need to build a stable enough spatial transmission device to cover London. Pope will be the chief engineer of this project. Once the accurate positioning of the plane is completed, everyone will be able to return safely. When the escape plan was given, the biological mother let out a sigh of relief. The bubble wriggled and continued. The London game has begun, and I hope that everyone can do their best to complete this game. The above is only the escape plan that I have given, and it can be considered as a last resort. Everyone here is the future of our world. I hope that you can find a better solution, or even a solution that exceeds expectations, while exploring the world and fighting against the alien race. I look forward to your performance. After saying that, the foam-like substance slowly dissipated. Pope and the members of the secret Church of the Void under his command also fell into a state of fatigue after establishing such a distant connection. Pope, London will provide you with the highest level of service. You can go rest and recover. Pope shook his head, and his eyes were unusually firm as he replied, Biological Mother, please allow me to continue participating in the meeting. I also have some views that I would like to express in the meeting. It's just some tiredness in thinking, it's not important. All right. Now, please draw up a document on the spot. It can be an opinion of the current situation, an initial plan, or an overall battle plan, and so on. Father Lesos is fully responsible for the integration of information and the determination of the battle plan. I will be mainly responsible for the security issues within London. Father Lesos gladly accepted the big responsibility thrown at him, or it could be said that Father Lesos had already prepared for this. Everyone listened to the biological mother's request and wrote a document one after another, expressing their own opinions. Nicholas, you look very serious. What are you writing? Grimm was like a classmate at the same desk who wanted to copy homework. He peeked at the content that Han Dong was writing, but he had no intention of writing a plan at all. Just expressing a little opinion. At present, we have no idea about the situation of the lost world. Intelligence investigation is very necessary. We may have to act alone later. Okay. Everyone handed in their documents one after another. In addition to Grimm, who handed in a blank paper, there was another with a similar nature. Ninth Primordial Kit wrote, so troublesome, on the white paper. He had no interest in the battle plan at all. He even hoped that the operation would fail and he would die directly in the plane crash. Everyone worked out different types of plans according to their own areas of expertise, and Han Dong's initial investigation plan for the Lost World was directly passed without modification. Considering the extreme environment of the Lost World, it was hoped that individuals with good abilities and less affected by the strong light could be gathered. According to strict allocation of functions, multiple investigation teams could be formed. A comprehensive investigation of the nearby area was launched to search for traces of hostile forces. This plan Han Dong directly copied the Outside the City Act, promulgated by the Holy City to a large extent. He didn't expect that this method, which was originally used by the human knights to investigate the hybrid demons, would be used in such a place. Chapter 1330. The chaotic state of the world, the direct sunlight from the 5 stars, and the completely unknown nature of the world. Conducting an investigation outside the city, under such circumstances, was no less dangerous than the exploration and expedition of the knights into the hybrid demon world. The arrangement of the investigators. First of all, the dark inhabitants who were extremely afraid of light were excluded. The ninth origin substance, the evil root Kit Lanier, and the evil forces gathered in the sewers would be stimulated by the strong light. At the same time, the irreplaceable Hornbop and its corresponding void secret cult would remain in the British Library and would not leave the city unless necessary. At the same time, the humans, who had rich investigation experience and were least affected by the environment, would be the main force of the investigation outside the city. As for the humans, Han Dong naturally did not need to worry about them. During the game, Han Dong positioned himself as the third force, independent of the London headquarters and the expeditionary force with the manor as the unit. On the streets of London, Han Dong held a black umbrella and walked with Glenn. The latter looked very bored and was eager to go outside the city to play. "Nicholas, who are we going to see?" "Me, you, Sally, and Hope. Isn't it good to go out of the city as a team of 4? The functionality is not comprehensive, and the investigation efficiency is not high. There must be invading forces in the lost world we are currently in, and there is a certain probability of encountering them during the investigation outside the city. Miss Sally and Hope are, to some extent, siege weapons, so it is necessary to hide them a little. In addition, during the investigation outside the city, they also need to guard the manor. In a situation where all information is completely unknown, it is entirely possible that the City of London will be attacked." "You mean, in terms of functionality, there are better candidates to make up for Sally and Hope. Here we are, they are inside." Han Dong put away the umbrella and led Glenn into a tavern. As they moved toward the deepest part of the tavern, bursts of voices symbolizing love were constantly heard. Glenn gently elbowed Han Dong's waist and abdomen, showing a very understanding look. "Nicholas, do you want to vent your anger before we depart? But you don't want Sally to see, so you deliberately let her stay in the manor, right? By the way, you don't want to touch Sally, and instead, you like to play outside." Interesting, Han Dong was too lazy to explain anything. He quickly quickened his pace, and arrived at the room at the end. He pushed the door open. Due to the skillful use of magic eye, it would naturally maintain 30% of its active state even under normal circumstances. The scene in front of him made Han Dong feel a little nauseous. He almost threw up the food he had just eaten. However, Glenn was very interested in the people and things in the room. His mood of boredom was immediately swept away. Grimm's perspective in the private room, the sixth prime, Helen Silber, was lying on the table naked. A highly skilled massage technician was using some kind of technique that Glenn had never seen before, wandering between the ridges and rivers, stimulating every acupuncture point in her body, so much so that Helen's whole body was leaking out an aura of love, and her spirit was in a state of excitement. Han Dong's perspective, finger, skull, crack, 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 crazy sounds were heard. "Sister Helen, why are you here? Who is this young and promising fellow?" Helen, who was immersed in absolute enjoyment, did not notice someone approaching the private room. When such a familiar voice entered her eardrums, she was so scared that she grabbed her coat and hid behind the masseuse. There was a trace of fear in her eyes. "Go. Glenn, why are you here?" When Glenn looked directly at Helen, he was also not affected by her external beauty, and spoke very normally. Instead, Glenn was very interested in the technique displayed by the technician. "Nicholas brought me here. He said that he wanted to temporarily replace teammates to make up for the lack of functionality. So it's you. Indeed, in terms of functionality, you are indeed better than Sally." Han Dong was stunned for a moment before he finally recovered from the scene just now. He quickly went forward and explained, The replacement teammates are not only Miss Helen. There is also this human. He is a friend of mine in the Holy City, Demps Martin. In terms of functionality involved in investigations outside the city, he should be the best among us. This technician? I remember Nicholas. You used to say that you have a very interesting friend in the Holy City. Could it be him? After saying that, Glenn had already stuck in front of him. The abyssal hole between his pupils was also magnified to a certain extent, carefully observing the relevant characteristics of the technician. No wonder I always felt that you were somewhat different from humans. Your body seems to be shouting the characteristics of the original hybrid demons. Are you the man on the back? Don't be nervous. Since you are Nicholas' friend, you are also half a friend of mine. I won't kill you. Demps could only nod, and his expression was stiff and awkward. Can you give me a similar massage service? If it feels good, I will agree to let you join. Demps made a professional smile and stretched out his hand. Please take off your shirt, Mr. Glenn, like Miss Helen on the table. Leave the rest to me. While lying on the table, Glenn turned his head to Han Dong, who was standing at the door. Nicholas, during the massage, let's talk about the next investigation. I think you should have a different action plan. It's best to let our investigation scope be bigger than other teams. It's also my first time in this kind of lost world. It should be very interesting. All right. I did gather all of you together to form a special team for my own selfish reasons. After all, Glenn and Helen are relatively special. Your forces are on you and can be used at any time. Moreover, I expect the investigation scope to be bigger than other teams. We should strive to touch the essence of the lost world in advance. Unexpectedly, Glenn did not listen to the plan at all. He had already entered the massage state within a minute. This feeling is really novel. It can really stimulate my internal senses. You have something up your sleeve. Not bad, I admit you. This time the investigation will be carried out by the four of us. It feels so good. Because Demps's fingers were moving quickly on the surface of his body and performing the appropriate rotation hole, he was completely immersed in the enjoyment. Seeing this, Han Dong did not explain anymore. He and Miss Helen looked at each other and both of them showed a very awkward smile. After Demps slowly adapted to Glenn's body, he also diverted part of his attention to privately communicate with Han Dong. Nicholas, are you trying to kill me? Why didn't you tell me in advance and directly bring the mad demon to me? Isn't the current situation very good? It needs this kind of original opening to make Glenn accept. Otherwise, if you meet him in a normal way, he may be in a bad mood and directly kill you. You are really getting crazier. In any case, next time remember to tell me in advance. If you came 10 minutes earlier, the scene would be really hard to explain. Developing so fast? As expected of you. Chapter 1331. Since the outside of the city investigation was the first exploration of the lost world, the unknown risks were unpredictable. All investigation teams that went out of the city needed to report a lot of information in advance, including the information about the team members, the estimated investigation route, scope, and time. At the same time, it needed to be evaluated and reviewed by Father Lessos. Currently, Father Lessos stared at the four young people in front of him. He did not even look at the investigation report submitted by Han Dong and approve. There was no doubt about the strength of this team, not to mention that Han Dong and Green were the winners of the last game. The priest gave them a position that was equivalent to a mythical team. However, out of consideration for Green, the priest sent a private message to Han Dong. Are you sure you can control Green and not let him mess around? Yes, Green's madness and I complement each other. I will use the fulcrum to restrict Green's dangerous thoughts. This trip will try to bring back key information. Let me give you a small gift. After that, the priest grabbed the back of Han Dong's right hand for personal reasons. A dark energy was injected into it and mixed with the crow mark on the back of his hand. There are other mythical bodies that have injected mimicry energy into your body. The crow costume can be so exquisite. May I ask which hybrid demon did it? It's not a hybrid demon, it's my mentor in the holy city. As soon as this was said, the priest's eyes flashed with a hint of interest. Not bad. If this game can let you regain your authority, I would like to go to your holy city to take a look. Good. At that time, I will personally welcome you and show you around the holy city. The mimicry energy given by Father Lessos was similar to the bird beak doctor costume. It could be retracted and released at any time. Whoosh! An umbrella with black gas was held in Han Dong's hand. It could effectively block the sunlight. Han Dong could also use his own energy to copy the umbrella to his teammate. With the priest's help, the sunshade prop is solved. Our investigation this time may take longer. All kinds of supplies are necessary. Does anyone have any ideas? Miss Helen immediately raised her hand. I can handle this. As long as I have enough energy, I can produce supplies without limit. With that said, a watery and translucent plant branch grew out of his arm, bearing a few heart-like fruit. This is? When the demonic eye looked through the heart fruit, not only could it see the rich energy, it could even see the wisps of illusory life force, which could be used to relieve pain and heal. Glenn, who was at the side, was even more impolite. He grabbed a fruit and gnawed on it, causing the juice to splatter. Miss Helen's fruit is really delicious. This thing can ensure that we are in our best condition when we are not in combat. This is something unique to the Dreamlands. Han Dong's eyes lit up. Okay, then we just need to make sure that Miss Helen eats and drinks well, and the supply problem will be solved. In addition, considering that the Lost World may have a terrain environment that we have never seen before, as well as some collapsed areas, it is best that everyone is equipped with a versatile mount. As soon as he finished speaking, Grimm directly put his arm into an indescribable hole in his body. As he pulled with all his might, he pulled out a 3.5 to 4 long Yandelo's hound, from one of the abyss compartments that was specially used for storing creatures. Ashes drifted in the air, and broken teeth reached the abdomen. The hound gave the feeling that it was between reality and illusion. Han Dong was still very familiar with this kind of hound that belonged to Grimm, and could easily tear and travel through space. Originally, Han Dong also wanted to follow Grimm and go to the hound's home planet to look for an opportunity to sign a contract. However, considering the danger and the problem of time, plus Count's good performance, Han Dong gave up on this idea. Without considering space, in Han Dong's eyes, Count was not inferior to this hound. Yandelos, when Demps and Helen saw the hound, cold sweat could not help but flow out of their backs. They knew very well where this hound came from, and the planet that carried the hound was called the Forbidden Zone, for a reason. Perhaps only a madman like Grimm could be recognized. Immediately after, Helen fell asleep in a graceful posture. Swoosh! A crack appeared along her spine, tearing her back into two halves. It was not flesh and blood, nor was it densely packed skulls, but a portal that led directly to the Dreamland. The giant flower, that Helen came to London on before, naturally could not be used for investigation outside the city. It was too conspicuous. She needed a quiet and suitable mount here. The portal corresponded to the depths of the Dreamland that Han Dong had never been to before, the enchanted forest, Nightmare Villa. A nightmare creature that was made by Helen using various nightmare materials and the bones of living creatures was slowly approaching the portal. Just when everyone thought that it was an extremely terrifying strange life form, a perfectly proportioned unicorn stepped out of the portal in a graceful posture. When the horse's hooves landed on the ground, it produced a nightmare fog with a strong psychedelic effect, which had a strong psychedelic effect. The psychedelic hair had the characteristics of a chameleon. The spiral horn came from the nightmare diamond, and together with Helen, it could activate an extremely rare nightmare secret spell. This nightmare beast might not be as good as the Yandelo's hound in terms of attack and movement, but its comprehensive index was definitely not bad. "Demps, do you want to sit with me?" Helen stroked the soft mane of the horse while throwing a flirtatious look at Demps. "Thank you for your invitation, Miss Helen, but riding together is not good for the overall mobility of the team. It's better to do the initial investigation as an individual unit." Demps moved his fingers with a strange spell, weaving a flying carpet that could be ridden. What was that just now?" Grim stared at Demps' method of constructing the flying carpet and accidentally caught a glimpse of something. When Grim wanted to take a closer look, the strange feeling just now had completely disappeared. Clap clap. Han Dong clapped his hands hard to attract everyone's attention. "Since everything is ready, the investigation will officially begin. Let's go out of the city at a slow speed and experience the harsh environment outside the city." After saying that, Han Dong immediately transmitted to the unwilling consciousness in his body. "Count, hurry up. Why are you throwing a tantrum now? Isn't it just a mount? With your ability and level, you must be the best mount here. Count is used to kill enemies, not to be ridden." When Count was asked to take the initiative to become a mount, his self-esteem immediately resisted. "How about this, if you can accept the secondary position of mount? The right to use the Underworld Blood Necklace will be completely yours, and even if there is a chance to complete the necklace into a legendary equipment in the future, it will still be up to you." "That's what you said." Count's original attribute of being a blood descendant had long been changed by the underworld blood, and to a certain extent, could not even be classified as a blood descendant, but a new kind of blood life. Count's consciousness had also been pulled by the necklace several times to a different world called the Dawn of Terror. On the streets of London, Han Dong first ran forward alone. A faint barking sound came from his arm. Flesh and blood separated. Canine teeth grew. Scarlet scattered. A blood dog with a body length of 4 meters peeled off and carried Han Dong on its back, leading the team to the city gate. Chapter 1332. Sizzle. Han Dong was the first to leave the city. He deliberately did not open any protective measures and directly felt the harsh environment of the outside world with his body. The moment the light fell on the skin, steam rose. At the same time the skin was evaporated, the surface of the meat developed a large number of holes. The cells were quickly destroyed by the impact of some kind of cosmic particles, and the tissue immediately evolved into a gangrenous structure. Han Dong was so scared that he put on the doctor's jacket and opened the black umbrella at the same time. The black umbrella, given by Father Lysos, also had a strong self-adaptability. When the black umbrella was opened, not only did it cover Han Dong, the falling shadow also formed an integrated black membrane on the surface of the blood dog according to Count's body size, causing the bright red blood dog to be completely dyed black. It was essentially a kind of shadow shrouding, and it would not affect the blood dog's related actions. The rest of the teammates also enjoyed the protection of the black umbrella. Glenn felt the comfortable shelter given by the darkness and commented, "Worthy of the priest. In my opinion, he should have a high probability of winning the throne within 10 years. The priest is indeed very strong. And according to the performance of the mother's transfer of command during the game, there is a faint intention to transfer London to the priest." The chat ended here, and everyone left the city. The mounts were in a state of slow travel. Including Glenn, who had always been indifferent to anything, was also carefully observing the post-apocalyptic wasteland in front of him. A half-metal world? Everyone stepped on the ground and could see large and small metal spots everywhere. Among the raging sandstorm, glittering metal fragments could also be seen with the naked eye. A planetary magnetic field 100 times stronger than the Earth's was affecting the environment here. The metal sand moved regularly, visibility was very low, and the perception field was also affected. Han Dong's perception was about limited to 30% of usual. Glenn whispered, "This is the world that is about to be destroyed. It's really scary. Rumor has it that when the world cataclysm happened, our world had several similar areas, and no life could live in such an environment for a long time. Nicholas, it looks the same everywhere. How do we determine the direction of investigation? Our understanding of this place is like a blank sheet of paper. First, set a fixed direction and move forward. If you encounter anything strange on the way, go and take a look. If you perceive something, you can change the direction at any time. Everyone, follow me. Don't act alone. The magnetic field of this planet is very strong, and there are no reference objects. It will be very troublesome if we get separated. I have a way to keep everyone together no matter what." Miss Helen's voice came from behind, and she passed a seed to each of them through the plant. "This thing belongs to my origin item, and will not harm anyone. As long as it is swallowed into the body, a permanent consciousness connection will be established until the individual dies or the item is dug out." "Good stuff." Grimm swallowed it without hesitation. After Dempus did a quick inspection, he also swallowed it into his body. Even though Han Dong knew that this seed was harmless to him, he still couldn't bring himself to eat it. In Han Dong's eyes, this was a living skull the size of a seed, its jaw constantly opening and closing, making strange cracking sounds. "Mr. Nicholas, is there a problem?" Helen asked. "I'm fine. My teeth haven't been too good lately. I can't take this kind of crunchy thing. Wait a moment." Han Dong closed his eyes and forcibly swallowed it into his body. At the same time, a kind of dream internal network was immediately generated. Its degree of stability was dozens of times more stable than the consciousness connection established by an individual. "It's really good stuff. Miss Helen is really an expert in this regard. Alright, everyone follow me." The magic eye opened. The pupil turned into a whirlpool. A black whirlpool shot out from the pupil, equivalent to a searchlight. The area covered by the whirlpool was completely unaffected by the magnetic field and the sandstorm. With the field effect and the olfactory feedback provided by Count, Han Dong could determine that his team was moving in a straight line all the way without any reference. The slow pace of the mount slowly turned into a sprint. There was nothing along the way. There were no living creatures, and there were no changes in the environment. About 50 kilometers, the situation changed dramatically. The violent sandstorm and the strong magnetic field were quickly reduced here, and even completely disappeared. It was as if everyone had passed through a layer of sealing enchantment and came to the real, lost world. It seemed. The city of London that was teleported was only wrapped in a magnetic field enchantment with a radius of 50 kilometers. The field of vision widened. A diversified world appeared in front of them. The layered topographical structure divided the world into two parts, upper and lower. The Earth could be regarded as the middle layer. Upper, that is, above the ground, equivalent to the area of life activity on the Earth's surface. Metal plants, plants with a metal content of more than 60%. Their survival methods and biological functions are unknown for the time being. The only thing that is known is that these plants can survive under the strong direct radiation of the 5 stars without the protection of the atmosphere. Geometric stones, stones with a standard geometric shape, with a high metal content, can be seen everywhere. Some are scattered in single pieces, and some are randomly clustered together, similar to a large waste yard. Some large geometric stones are piled up with each other in a very strange shape, which can be described as a wonder. Magnetic mountains. In addition to the hills piled up with stones, there is also a mountain range composed of magnetic fluid. Influenced by the underground magnetic field, its shape will change every once in a while. Occasionally, it will gather into a spiral of metal towering into the sky. Occasionally, it will appear as a black mountain covered with spikes. Sometimes it will even be suspended in the sky, forming a giant ball. Lower, similar to the cracks formed by earthquakes, they spread across the earth. From where Han Dong and the others were, they could see 3 cracks spanning thousands of meters. However, the lower end of these cracks did not correspond to the abyss, but an underground world that had been modified by creatures. When Han Dong rode Bloodhound close to a crack and looked down through the crack, the underground scene that came into view stunned Han Dong. A road. About 100 meters underground, there was a road structure similar to human society, and there was even a metal road sign inserted next to it. When his vision swept over other areas, more exaggerated images came into view, and a wasteland-style society was quickly constructed in Han Dong's mind. There is a life detection? A native life, or an outsider who took the mission from the Black Tower and came to participate in the London game. When the magic eye swept over the garbage dump on the side of the road, it accidentally captured a little life detection. Han Dong immediately urged everyone to come to the crack, ready to go to the underground world to explore. Chapter 1333. It's a layered world structure. I'm guessing that before the Lost World, the situation on the surface was just as bad. It was difficult for life to survive, so the living space was forced underground. The civilization here should also be hidden in the underground area. Steel, I accidentally caught a glimpse of a weak life. It's in that pile of garbage. Just in case, I'll set up a teleportation portal to the underground. Everyone will approach the target in stealth mode. After confirming that there's no ambush, immediately suppress the target and try to keep them alive. Life. I'll go take a look. Grim peeked at the new underground world. When he heard that there was life, he immediately became excited. A tentacle grew out of a finger and connected to the brain of the Hound of Yandelos, which would be referred to as the Hound from now on. The sharp teeth easily tore open the space and carried Grim quickly into it, heading toward the garbage dump that Han Dong had mentioned. TSK. Grim, this guy is more annoying. I'll go first. Demps, you and Miss Helen slowly come down. If Grim and I are attacked, you guys can think of a solution from the outside. After saying that, Han Dong turned into starlight and disappeared. Miss Helen muttered to herself with a strange expression. He didn't even lower his voice and directly said bad things about Grim behind his back. Won't he be killed like this? I'm not sure either. Demps was even more helpless. He didn't intend to go deep into the hybrid demon circle. In the end, not only was he pulled into the circle because of Han Dong, but he also directly came into contact with the extremely dangerous Prime. Whoosh! The Hound was between the gap between reality and space. There was no gap between space and time. Han Dong's chase was still half a beat slower. Grim was already standing in front of the 4-meter-high garbage dump piled with various kinds of metal waste, ready to attack. Grim, wait. This is a battlefield. There are at least 2 worlds in positions that we don't know. It could be a trap in front of us. A trap? Isn't that better? I like traps the most, these things created by the weak. When the prey falls into the trap that they are proud of, it will make them feel complacent. Just when they think that victory is in their hands and their emotions are at their highest. At this point, Grim made a tearing motion with both of his arms, as if he was tearing the body into 2 halves, bathing in the body fluid gushing out from the body cavity. Wow! While tearing his body apart, he could also feel the change in his emotions. It was an extreme change of falling from the peak to the bottom, the hunter turning into the prey. This kind of dual experience would make people infatuated and even addicted. Nicholas, I'm sure you'll like it. Grim had already locked onto the life in the garbage dump and pulled it out. No traps were triggered. There was no violent explosion. Neither did a large army appear to surround them instantly. Looking for a weak life force and pulled out of the garbage dump, it turned out to be a waste robot. 1. A square mechanical body with a metal plate fixed with screws on the surface. There was even a heart-shaped graffiti on it. 2. A camera was embedded at the top, and it was also connected to an old-fashioned speaker with a receiver. 3. Rubber tires that can freely turn are inlaid at the lower end, which can realize free turning and fast rolling. 4. Equipped with 2 crudely made mechanical arms with exposed cables, one of which was being held in the air by Grimm. What kind of garbage is this? Grimm looked at the robot that had no combat power in front of him, his face full of disappointment. At the same time, a mechanical voice full of excitement came from the robot speaker, using a Black Tower common language. Hello, new meatballs. Welcome to Pandora. Thank you very much for being able to save me from this dirty and stinky garbage dump. First of all, please let me down. I have an important task related to the stability of the world for you. Grimm, I can understand this guy's language. Let it down first, it will help us understand the nature of the current world. If we're lucky, we might be able to find the opponent's base camp in one fell swoop. Grimm let go. The little robot felt that it could stand firmly, but in fact, it suddenly slipped. The remaining electricity in its body could no longer support basic activities. It was previously stuck in the garbage dump for this reason. The speaker continued to speak. Follow the road for 1 kilometer, there should be a red spear camp. Your task is to go to the camp and bring back some shiny things. This will be of great help in saving the world. Han Dong stepped forward, looked down at the little robot, and responded in the Black Tower language. You just want to charge, right? No need to look for energy stones or batteries. We can directly charge you. However, I have a question. How do you know we are new? You are 100% fresh meatballs. Any life that lives in Pandora cannot avoid metal corrosion and assimilation. This is very easy to judge. So, you are a local? You are very clear about the situation here? I was produced 89 years ago. I am a functional robot developed and manufactured by Herbalin, equipped with an adaptive upgrade H4000 chip. Although since Pandora fell into the self-destruction era, the network has not been upgraded, but other machines are the same. I can say that no machine knows Pandora's situation better than I do. Han Dong marveled at the robot's intelligence level. From the words, he could feel that the machine wanted to survive and even bragged. Also, through the close-range vision of the magic eye, he could also confirm the authenticity of most of the robot's word. It was in an offline state, so the possibility of being controlled could be ruled out. Its self-awareness had been completely formed, and the source was the chip embedded inside. Self-awareness is almost equal to vitality. This also explained why Han Dong was able to sense a weak and strange life force earlier. It is in line with the characteristics of living in the lost world. If used well, it should be able to become a guide, guiding us to quickly understand the current world. At this time, Demps and Miss Helen arrived one after another. Demps, can you charge this thing? I'll try. Demps, who was also obsessed with reading and proficient in various fields, made an okay gesture after checking the robot's structure. His finger poked into the charging port. The regular magic circuit in the right arm of the holy city, the energy was converted into a fixed-frequency current, quickly charging. Wow! Electrified meatballs, my Superman! The robot felt the long-awaited abundant electricity, spinning in excitement. You have saved Pandora's most advanced robot, please come with me. My workshop is built not far away, where I can build the most advanced equipment for you. The small robot slid through the tires of its lower body, leading the way in front. A very rhythmic music was humming from the speakers, and its arms danced with the melody, quite happy. Han Dong stared at the harmless robot, also thinking about a question. Why did the Black Tower choose here as the battlefield of the London game? Chapter 1334. Before London arrived on Pandora, 4 powerful forces from different worlds had already arrived. According to the Pandora information in their hands, they completed the world adaptation in advance and even laid a solid foundation in Pandora. A few weeks ago, they had created a comprehensive city that was better than London in size, adaptability, and diversity. A city that could exist stably in the lost world and take over Pandora to a certain extent, Markmas. A giant city-state with ultramodern technology was built by the Matrix, combined with the attributes of the coalition forces and with the help of saint-level craftsmen. According to the Black Tower's request, the 4 worlds each sent a king-level existence to participate in this invasion against the hybrid demons. 2 of the kings were also the people in charge of their world, the Matrix and Black Dragon, who had already appeared in the Black Tower. The 2 of them corresponded to the more ordinary large worlds, where there were only single digits of king-level existences. They wanted to take this opportunity to gain the trust and world resources of the Black Tower in one fell swoop and quickly expand their world. In addition, the Supreme Titan in charge of the Saint world had reached a very high level and could not participate. The craftsmen who also belonged to the Titan Temple took over the heavy burden and descended on Pandora. Their attributes were also more in line with the current mission. The image of the lower Titan was an adult male carrying a heavy hammer and anvil, wearing an iron mask and iron rings on all parts of his body. He was introverted and had only communicated with the Matrix during his time in Pandora. Finally, the Holy Infant in charge of Sin was also unable to descend due to level restrictions. The replacement was a Sin King who had the body of a human woman and whose sensitive parts were wrapped in bandages. Her head was missing and replaced by a famous knife inserted in her neck. At the same time, several parts of her body showed signs of being cut. Her separated arms, waist, abdomen, and thighs were connected by sin thread. As the Black Tower paid a high price to complete the world stripping, the city of London descended on Pandora's preset point. The meeting between the kings also began at the same time. Matrix, Alpha State. Unlike the spherical body in the Black Tower, the current participant was an alpha shell made of liquid metal. The face simulated a very orthodox female appearance. Teplos Nadrilis, father of the Black Dragon's appearance hadn't changed for a long time. In order to fit his body into the conference room, he turned into an old man with a cane. However, the dragon's scales covering his body had a metallic luster compared to before. Blacksmith 3 Ufong B. Kryman, Titan, the reclusive man had sealed himself with iron rings all over his body. The iron rings that covered his eyes and the mask that sealed off his mouth and nose also completely covered his facial expression. Slaying the Emperor. Lu Ming Sect. 10,000 Sins Hall. The young lady with the famous saber could communicate through the body of the saber. Currently, through 3-dimensional projection technology, the mother body showed everyone the current state of London. It was just as Han Dong had guessed. The city of London is located in the center of the strong magnetic field area, which has a radius of about 50 kilometers. The mother briefly explained the attack plan for London. World S01 adopted the Sovereignty Division Management Model, which was implemented through a physical item called Land Deed. The city named London corresponded to a title deed, a lower king. Even if the other world's sovereignty has been divided and transformed physically, it still can't change the essence of sovereignty. Every land deed needs to draw energy from the world's core. London has been completely cut off from the original world, and the energy stored in the land deed is very limited. The combination of the strong magnetic field and the metal storm, as well as the energy consumed by London when crossing planes, is estimated to exhaust all the energy of the land deed in 15 days. Once the protection of the land deed disappears, the entire city will be exposed to the harsh environment. At that time, it will be the best time for us to launch a general attack. the Black Dragon old man immediately asked. Then, before the so-called energy of the land deed is exhausted, we also have a corresponding battle plan, right? Although we have a huge advantage, our opponent is S01 after all. We have to do our best to destroy them. Mother Body, if you don't have a plan, let me do it. The early stage of the annihilation plan has been formulated. Location, control, annihilation. London is in a sealed area, and some of the hybrid demons will be sent out of the city to investigate Pandora's situation. Once the location and number of investigators is determined, more than 3 times the number of troops will be sent out. Capture alive or expose complete brain tissue. This will allow us to obtain the greatest amount of information about London, and the threat value will be directly annihilated. Could it be that the Mother Body has solved the problem of location? Well, the original internal network of Pandora has been reactivated. At present, the location of a few investigators has been collected, and the troops have been dispatched. Camera cut. The small robot led the way in front. Han Dong and the others disbanded their mounts and followed behind on foot. Except for Grimm, they were carefully examining the wasteland-like underground world. Highways were a major feature of the underground world. The intricate highways could lead to every corner of the underground world. Beyond the highways was barren and dry land, and some had even been desertified. Iron pieces and bones could be seen everywhere. Such a scene must have been caused by the lost world. Through some animal and plant bones, Han Dong could probably foresee that this was once an underground ecological area with pleasant scenery. In addition, large and small billboards were inserted uncontrollably on both sides of the road. In addition to selling mechanical products and auxiliary robots, about 70% of the advertisements involved weapons. Judging from the content on the billboards, Han Dong began to suspect that the largest forces on the planet may have been these various weapons manufacturers. Along the way, following the robot, they did not catch a glimpse of any vitality. After a while, similar to a waste collection station, it appeared on the side of the road. The outer wall was composed of iron plates, spikes, steel wire mesh, and generators, but the generators had long since stopped working. The whole thing seemed to have been abandoned for a long time. This is my home. If you can power up my equipment, I can make weapons for you that can destroy heaven and earth, and even give you a set of upgrade packages. Han Dong had long guessed that the robot had other thoughts and wanted to further obtain electricity from them, but it didn't matter. As long as the information was in place, electricity was a small matter. Before entering the way station, Han Dong stepped forward and asked, "Why do you know this language?" This is a diplomatic language, implanted in the chip before the factory, specially used to communicate with you meat of unknown origin. Oh! Han Dong was a little surprised. The Black Tower language was implanted before the factory? In that case, the world called Pandora was at least the beginning of a large world. Only large worlds and above had the authority to two-way interaction with the Black Tower. I didn't expect that even a large world would be left behind and collapse. What happened here? Chapter 1335. Similar to the area of the Waste Acquisition Station. It was built by small robots, and many iron plates came from roadside billboards. However, the production of the fixed bearings was very delicate, using rare metal materials. Through a very novel way of connecting, the overall play a strong stabilizing role. If the whole body can be electrified, it will indeed appear safer. Ta-ta! This is my residence, the world's greatest robot home. A few words were written in series with a small light bulb on the door, but unfortunately there is no electricity to light it up. The most common object in the residence is cable. Various colors of cables of different sizes are inserted in the room, connected to a variety of strange equipment. Han Dong also noticed a relatively tall workbench, covered with a variety of complex blueprints and equipped with a variety of advanced equipment. However, Han Dong also perceived a breath of life from below. There are other lives here? You can perceive Little Pink. Don't be afraid, Little Pink is my best friend. Because of the network paralysis, his brain can't be regularly cleaned. The state is not very good. I locked him in the basement. Take me to see. Okay, but you can only look at him through the small window on the door. Han Dong deliberately looked at Green. Surprisingly, Green seemed to be more honest when he came to the residence. He was carefully observing the advanced equipment here, and even picked up some design drawings or small devices in front of his eyes to carefully observe. In any case, this is the first time Green set foot on the land of another world. When new things appear in front of him, it is inevitable that he will not be curious. You stay up here, I will go down and check. The basement has a completely closed metal door. Meet, you can only look at it. Little Pink is very dangerous now. The robot carefully opened the partition on the door and immediately hid behind Han Dong. A smell of rotten meat and metal mixed from the inside. A 3-meter-tall burly man reflected in Han Dong's vision. The surface of the skin is not only covered with metal spots, but also with large and small metal pieces. The initial metal coverage is more than 70%. The reason why he is called Little Pink is because his face is painted with pink clown makeup, and he is currently gnawing on a huge piece of metal. It seems that he can get nutrition by eating metal. Feeling the partition open, Little Pink immediately hit the door with all his strength. Boom! Boom! In a situation where its continuous attacks were useless, it could only stick to the window and spit out a tongue full of metal pieces. It was incomparably crazy. Han Dong asked, "Where did this thing come from?" Little Pink used to be my best friend, and he also worked for Herbalong. He was a member of the tactical team. Just like I said, due to the network outage, he couldn't clean up the data in his brain through the company's system, and he slowly became like this. In other words, before this world was lost, the natives were still humans. Human? That's a very high-end term. In the past, only the leaders of the major companies were qualified to be called humans. The rest were all called meatballs. After all, other than the humans who lived on the top floor, most of the meat couldn't be separated from metal. Even if it doesn't actively accept the metal, it will slowly be changed by the environment. Combined with the robot's description, Han Dong stared at Little Pink in the basement and faintly smelled the scent of out of control. Are there still many crazy meatballs like this? Quite a lot. After the network outage, all the meatballs couldn't clean up their brain data. Although some directly committed suicide, a large number of them survived in a state of madness. They are called lunatics. They are now scattered all over the world, continuing to survive in the form of factions and tribes. Some of the more powerful lunatics even occupied the remains of the weapons company and had quite terrifying weapons and equipment. However, it doesn't make much sense. Only the most primitive things are left in their brains. It's better to avoid them as much as possible. Han Dong nodded silently. This kind of information was very important. In Han Dong's eyes, this group of natives remaining in Pandora was the third party of this battle. If they could be used, it would also be a good fighting force. Moreover, this kind of clown makeup also reminded Han Dong of an old friend. Suddenly, a voice came. There is such a species down there? The whole thing has been completely crazy. Whether it is the species or the type of madness, it is different from the hybrid demons. It can be collected as a collection. Green came and looked at the individual behind the door with a look of looking at a small animal. Green, can you control him? Control? I am only good at training. However, with his ability, it will be difficult for him to survive in the abyss training. The best way is to make him into a pet and tie him in my pet room. I have a great interest in collecting different kinds of crazy creatures. No. Little Pink is my friend. The robot quickly waved his arms and rejected Green's idea. Tisk Green's mood changed slightly, and a crazy energy condensed in the palm of his hand. At this moment, Han Dong stepped forward, put his arm around Green's shoulder, and whispered something in his ear. At the same time, he let out a strange laughter. When the laughter spread into the basement, the manic little pink slowly calmed down. Interesting. I'll do as you say. When the time comes, remember to give me the most interesting lunatic on this planet as a pet. When Han Dong made an OK gesture. Click, 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 the sound of continuous switches came from above. At this moment, the sound of the machine operating again was also heard. The light from the light bulb also shone into the basement. It was electrified. It's really electrified. Da-da-da, come up quickly. As long as it's electrified, my workbench can work normally. You bunch of meatballs can't survive in Pandora without weapons. In return, I will make some good things for you. The little robot began to dance on the spot, and signaled the two to follow him. Just as everyone returned to their room, the little robot was stunned. The camera that acted as the eye turned to a corner of the room. There corresponded to the thickest cable and an unusually complicated plug structure. The indicator lights that monitored the cable's status all lit up in green. How could this be? When did the world network recover? Could it be that someone secretly provided enough power like you to restart and repair the world network? No matter what, Little Pink is saved. As long as we can connect the plug to Little Pink, we can organize his brain data. Wait. Just as the little robot was about to connect the plug for Little Pink, it was stopped by Han Dong. Chapter 1336. Based on the information given by the little robot, it was easy to guess. Before the Lost World, all life on Pandora was connected to the world network. Organic life would inevitably be eroded by metal, so they had to connect to the world network regularly through their brains to clean up the excess impurities in their brains and maintain the stability of their consciousness. All kinds of intelligent machines also needed to upgrade their systems through the world network and delete some unnecessary files. Not to mention the disadvantages of the world network. When such an important network was down, it meant that there was a problem with the world. Now, the lost world would completely collapse in a month's time. Yet, the world network was restored at the same time as the opening of the London game. No matter how one looked at it, there was a big problem with the restoration of the world network. In Han Dong's eyes, it was either related to the Black Tower or one of the worlds involved in the London game. Grim, is there any way to completely hide the two of us? I want to do an experiment. Why do you want to hide us? The reactivation of the world network is most likely related to the invaders. I want to try to lure them here. But we can't show ourselves. We killed a golden saint in a direct confrontation last time, so we can be considered a celebrity. Once the enemy locates our location through the world network and confirms that we are not under the protection of the City of London, there is a high probability that we will be killed by an overlord. With our current level, we can't defeat an overlord, right? Of course not, the concept of a king is very high. Helen, can you send us to the depths of the Dreamlands? Ah, okay. If it was any other teammate, Helen would gladly agree, but Grim was the only one who made it difficult for her. Helen's dream could reach the ancestral home in the depths of the Dreamlands. Grim's arrival might bring misfortune to the ancestral home, but she did not dare to reject Grim's request. However, Han Dong secretly made an OK gesture from behind, indicating that he would take care of Grim and would not do anything rash. Helen was relieved to see this. It was the same as summoning a mount. As Helen quickly fell asleep, a large number of plant tentacles grew from her back and dragged the two of them into it. At the same time, Han Dong also told Demps about the relevant matters. When the plant tentacles wrapped around the two of them, a strange feeling overflowed their bodies, as if they were being forced into a quagmire. Helen's voice sounded in their ears. The area you are about to arrive at is slightly different from the dreamlands that your consciousness is heading toward. Due to our transmigration, our connection with dreamlands was cut off as well. This is the original dreamscape created with me as the medium and foundation. Please do not destroy it. 1. In the blink of an eye, the two of them landed on the broken wooden bridge in the swamp. It was a swamp that stretched as far as the eye could see. Pale yellow mist hung in the air. It was completely different from the dreamlands Han Dong remembered. There weren't many plants in the swamp. Instead, there were a huge number of floating skulls. The density of the skulls was enough to make one's scalp tingle. Looking in the direction of the wooden bridge, about 500 meters or so, it corresponded to a half-submerged castle in the swamp. Grimm whispered in surprise. This is amazing. Rumor has it that the dream witches are able to construct their own dream spaces on top of the dreamlands. Each dream space is connected to the main body of the dreamlands. Is this the rumored residence of the dream witch? Right at this moment, a seductive female voice sounded from all around. At the same time, dozens of white cloths were dropped from the forest. The scene was a little strange. When the white cloths came into contact with the floating skulls, the skulls immediately gathered into a humanoid form. With the white cloths as a coat, they turned into the witch believers who lived here. Intruders, the small skulls piled up into a woman's face. She began to chant an ancient spell. Do you want to die? Her voice was released along with her voice. The invisible ripples stopped all the approaching witches in midair. The skulls that formed their bodies began to tremble in fear. So noisy. Grimm waved his hand and the nearest witch was beheaded in an instant. A series of broken skulls fell into the swamp. As the swamp became silent again, Grimm said with a smile, Nicholas, I heard that the comfort level here is no less than the Black Forest? Since we have nothing to do, let's go to the witch's home and have some fun. I heard that the dream witches bring spiritual pleasure. Not only can it replenish one's status, it can even increase one's mental strength value. Let's go. Han Dong was still very against it, but when he heard that it could increase his attributes, he immediately agreed. Grimm was like a regular guest. He called 2 witches to accompany him and went to the castle. In reality, Demps had started the fishing plan. Everything went according to the normal development of the situation at the beginning. Since the robot wanted to connect its friend to the world network, it would do so. However, next, the robot's operation was an eye-opener for Demp. Miss Helen, who was the original subject, was also stunned. In order to connect the crazy pink to the network cable, a reliable stabilizing device must be used. The robot found a lot of dusty materials and made it on the spot. Is this a product of the rules of this world? Or is it an ability of the robot itself? Incredible. Currently, the mechanical manufacturing that took place on the workbench saved a lot of physical processes. Just like the scene in the game, as long as the raw materials were provided to the NPC, it could immediately create the corresponding finished product. It looked like a simple soldering, but it could instantly create complex circuit boards and control chip. Ta-da! Once the control equipment is completed, my little pink will be restored. We can live together and hunt strange beasts like before. Soon, little pink, whose body was bound by the device, was brought up from the basement. Hey! Can I trouble you to help me with the electric meatball? According to the operation method on this blueprint, adjust the network cable to the correct position and then plug it into the back of Little Pink's head. It's very simple. Okay. Demps stepped forward to help with a smile. While adjusting and connecting to the network cable, he also quietly inserted the 6th finger into Little Pink's tailbone. This allowed Demps to directly monitor the brain reorganization. The moment the network cable was inserted into the back of Little Pink's head, the manic Little Pink instantly lost consciousness and lowered its head as if it had crashed. When Demps felt the changes in the brain, his face also changed. The so-called brain reorganization was more like a reinstallation system. Little Pink's brain was being reconstructed. Even the cerebellum was undergoing structural reorganization, and the memory layer was being cleared. It seems that Nicholas's guess was right. The reactivation of the world network should be related to our enemy. Little Pink, who had reopened its eyes, immediately turned its head 360 degrees. The visual image captured by its eyes was immediately uploaded along the network cable. Demps could feel the obvious neural activity and data transmission. Just as Demps was about to make a move, Jong! Sound of laser shooting. A powerful energy beam directly shot Little Pink's head, and the metal brain tumor scattered on the ground. The one who did this was the robot that had been thinking about Little Pink. It was holding a pulse rifle loaded with compressed energy bullet. The robot's camera flashed a red light, and the voice became sharp. An outsider reactivated the network. They actually dared to completely empty Little Pink's brain. Yeah. I want to kill them. Chapter 1337. The Matrix had arrived. A few weeks before arriving in Pandora, it had found and completely repaired the world's core network. At the cost of self-access, it had rebooted the network and obtained control of the planet. However, what puzzled the Matrix was that it was a planet with broken rules and disintegrated systems. The network project had been paralyzed for several years. When she spent a lot of money to restart the network and used herself as the network hub, she couldn't obtain complete access rights. The 9 weapon companies scattered in Pandora were independent of the network and couldn't obtain normal access right. At the same time, the world network couldn't cover about 5% of Pandora's secret corners. However, although these details might have a certain impact, it wouldn't have much impact on her supervision of the hybrid demons. Moreover, there was still time to obtain access rights to unknown areas. The Matrix had her own selfish motives. Complete control of the world network would not only give her an advantage in the battle. When the battle ended, she would also take away the secret treasures and technology in the world of Pandora. Currently, with the rebooting and recovery of the network, an incomparably large amount of information was sent back from all over the world, allowing the Matrix to understand almost 80% of the situation on the planet. However, as time passed, the number of individuals using the network was greatly reduced. The artificial intelligence technology on this planet has long reached the level of advanced life. It can actually realize that I am controlling the network system in a relatively short period of time. However, the current usage is enough for me to monitor the basic situation of Pandora. The Matrix sorted the collected data and processed it. While drawing the blueprint of the planet, information related to the hybrid demons was uploaded to the meeting. Sure enough, the hybrid demons who have lost their geographical advantage can only run around like headless flies. From small teams of 2 people to large groups of 20 to 30 people, they can only explore the current world at the cost of huge risk. They are completely scattered. We can use these investigators to test our joint force. The old Black Dragon couldn't wait to try the actual combat effect of the special force created by the 4 worlds. At the same time, he was also very curious about what was so special about the hybrid demons that were feared by thousands of worlds. The battle was simple. According to the information collected by the Matrix, 3 times the number of troops were sent to capture and annihilate the scattered hybrid demon squads. Just when no one had any objections, Titan, who had always been quiet and wore iron rings all over his body, spoke in a rough voice under his iron mask. This is our first strike against the hybrid demons. Even if we have the advantage of terrain and intelligence, I suggest that we focus on annihilation. The hybrid demons aren't as easy to deal with as you think. I'm sure that this ambush won't be a complete success. He hoped that they could be more cautious in the distribution of troops. For example, for a two-man team like this, they should arrange as many troops as possible to avoid any unexpected situations. Just a small team of 2 or 3 people can easily break through the magnetic field area and be sent out to investigate the situation of the planet. Their individual strength is definitely not something that can be evaluated at a glance. The reason why Titan was so cautious was precisely because in the last London game, the World of Saints was completely defeated. Yes, I've added your opinion into the analysis program. Deploying troops. The roar of a giant dragon could be heard from the sky above the main city of Markmas. The Allied army of the 4 worlds was about to set off. Waste collection station Little Powder, whose head was smashed into pieces, was buried in the front yard. The small robot had also specially created a metal tombstone with a small pink statue engraved on it. A pink teddy bear doll was hanging on it. As for Han Dong and Grimm, they were still playing in the witch's home. Only Demps and Miss Helen were here. Some kind of high-end program restarted and changed the original program of the World Network, so this happened. Is it related to you? The robot standing in front of the grave suddenly turned. This matter was indeed suspicious. After all, the time of Han Dong's appearance coincided with the restoration of the network. Demps pushed the monocle on his face and briefly outlined why the group of people came here. He said that they were in the exploration stage of the planet and it was impossible to control the network that involved the world's core. Moreover, we also hope to find the main body that controls the network. For some reason, we are in an opposing relationship with this group of guys. The robot watched Demps's speech the whole time. The seemingly simple camera was equipped with advanced scanning capabilities. During Demps's speech, no extra nerve fluctuations were detected. The possibility of lying was ruled out. Suspicion and vigilance were all gone. I'm sorry, Little Powder's death made me lose control of my emotions. You are a very good group of meat, I shouldn't have doubted you. Since our current purpose is the same, to find and kill the main body, that restarted the network. Why don't you be our guide? According to Demps's observation, this little thing that seemed to be a useless robot was not ordinary. Little Powder is dead, there is no point in staying here. Then, from now on you and I, Goldie, are friends. This is my favorite color, and it is also the name that Little Powder gave me when I was out of the control of the company. Goldie pointed to an iron plate on its back, with the text equivalent to yellow, yellow, scribbled on it. The sadness faded. Goldie rolled the tires and returned to the workbench in its residence. Before leaving, I have to go through a war upgrade. Wait a moment. Goldie continued to show its unique ability, quickly creating all kinds of complicated weapons, and using incomprehensible methods to assemble and integrate them into its body. While maintaining its harmless appearance, it kept putting all kinds of weapons into its body. These weapons were not randomly created. According to the secret blueprints stored in the workbench, the company logo of Herbalin Hyperion was at the bottom of these blueprints, and some of them were even top-secret documents. Just as Goldie was about to complete the upgrade, ring ring ring, the alarm rang in the residence, and the colorful alarm lights lit up at the same time. Strong hostile energy detected. There is an intruder. Could it be that Little Powder's visual data has been uploaded? The workbench in the residence that looked like a stove generated a three-dimensional image of the intruder. Dragon. To be precise, it was a giant dragon covered in metal armor, and it seemed to be carrying a mysterious team on its back. High-energy polymerization detected, defense mode activated. A metal hemisphere quickly rose from the residence that looked like a junkyard, completely enveloping the interior. At the same time, the dragon's breath arrived. Ultra-hot flames instantly enveloped Goldie's place, and the metal hemisphere was immediately burned red, and some areas were even slowly melting. The mechanical upgrade was not finished yet, and forcibly stopping it would lose a lot of raw materials. At this time, a hand landed on the surface of Goldie's machine. As expected, they're here. Nicholas was right. Leave the invaders to us. You can continue leveling up. Demps put his arm on Goldie, and his expression was not worried at all. Miss Helen went out of the door alone, with a kind of grace. Chapter 1338. This is the smallest team in all the information we have so far. First, male human. Non-hybrid demon magic waves detected. Suspected to be a mage who has obtained the right to interact with fate. Estimated to be beginner level gate opening. Second, the specific appearance is unclear. Outline of a female human. Aura determined to be a hybrid demon. Estimated to be a top-level gate opening. In addition, there's a local native who won't pose a threat. Such a weak team is actually arranged for us to deal with and annihilate them. Aren't the higher-ups being too cautious? The three of us are top-level gate opening. What a waste of resources. The one who spoke was a red dragon that was dozens of meters long. Every dragon scale was branded with flame patterns. His name was Baalis Flame Armor, and he was a famous dragon of the Dragonborn world. Yu Longchuan had won second place in the battle and was given the title of Flame Armor. He was only one step away from mythical structure. His strength was unquestionable. He couldn't understand why his team would be arranged to deal with the smallest two-man team. At this time, the mechanical voice reached the dragon's ears. The mother will never make the wrong decision. Hybrid demons are a special race that even the Black Tower can't deal with. The world's craftsman group is larger than us, and they completely failed in the last probing invasion. We need to do our best to annihilate the opponent and bring their bodies back. The voice came from the mechanical armor that covered the dragon's body. It looked solid but was constantly flowing. The mechanical life under the mother had reached a high level of affinity with the dragon Baalis after months of cooperative training. It attached to the dragon's surface in the form of liquid armor and cooperated with the dragon in battle. These timid craftsmen are all hiding in the main city of Markham's. They don't have the courage to fight the hybrid demons. However, their manufacturing skills are not bad. All right, I'll do my best to tear them apart. I'd like to see how powerful the legendary hybrid demons are. At this time, the dragon Baalis had arrived at the coordinate. The dragon flames that had been accumulated in its body spewed out toward the waste station below. Unexpectedly, a layer of protective metal hemispheres quickly rose, protecting the waste station from the damage of the dragon flames. My dragon flames can't melt it immediately. Interesting. However, how long can it last? The dragon flames not only had a temperature of nearly 10,000 degrees Celsius. It also has a burning property, which is more effective than ordinary flames. Under the continuous burning of the dragon flames, the metal layer was slowly melting. Suddenly, before the metal protective layer melted, it automatically removed itself. The draconic flames that should have continued to burn the insides of the dragon suddenly retracted back into its abdomen. It wasn't that some ability had stopped the dragon's breath, but that Baalis had voluntarily retracted the draconic flames. At the same time, Baelis's eyes were filled with love. The reason he stopped breathing was because he saw a female dragon. Soft, snow-white dragon scales. Slender and perfectly curved dragon claws. Soft and restrained white dragon wings. He also had a perfectly proportioned female dragon body. Such peerless beauty instantly caused Baalis to fall. He had never seen such a beautiful female before, and his desire to mate was growing exponentially. At this moment, strands of liquid metal covered Baelis' eyes and entered its skull, coating the surface of its brain with a layer of metal. Baalis, don't be fooled. The voice of his companion woke the dragon up. Through the filter of the special metal consciousness, Baalis discovered that there was no female dragon in front of him, but a terrifying hybrid demon formed by piling up skulls. Spirit invasion. I actually fell for it without feeling anything. Is this a hybrid demon? The sudden change caused the giant dragon to take a step back and reveal a rather fearful expression. The breath just now hadn't been used up. It continued to add some fresh flame to its abdomen, and an even hotter draconic flame spurted out of its mouth, heading straight for Miss Helen at the entrance of the waist station. Just as the draconic flames were about to devour its target, there was a slight sound of pages flipping, and an inexplicable chill swept through the area. Forbidden spell. Ice lotus in the human realm. Drip, a drop of ice crystal fell on the surface of the draconic flames and quickly bloomed into an ice lotus. In the blink of an eye, the ice lotus had spread. What is this? The dragon only felt a chill, and its entire body was frozen stiff. Including the draconic flames, an area of 5 miles was covered by the ice lotus, and everything was silent. Only the waist station was unaffected. The frozen draconic flames were less than a meter away from Miss Helen. At this time, Demps, who was holding an ancient book, slowly walked out. If one looked closely, they would find that several of his fingers were in a bent state. I didn't expect that using the forbidden technique after opening the door would still cause me to suffer a lot of backlash, Demps said as he used a simple and crude physical method to forcibly move his fingers back to their normal state. My dear, thank you very much. Miss Helen thanked him softly, and there was no trace of panic on her face. It seemed that even if Demps didn't make a move, the draconic flames wouldn't be able to hurt her. Demps rolled up his sleeves and reached out to comb his bangs, looking like he was about to fight seriously. Let the two of us deal with it first. If we really can't beat it, we'll call them out. Okay, Heartsuit, boom. The ice lotus not far away was hit by some kind of strong impact and instantly exploded. It was obviously done by the dragon. It was no longer a dragon that was dozens of meters long that reappeared. Instead, it was a 2-meter-tall man with red hair. He looked to be in his early 30s, and there were obvious red dragon scales on his cheek. A liquid metal coat covered his entire body, and rules flowed through every part of his body, faintly reflecting a human face. In addition, in the man's hand was a weapon of a completely different style. It was a bloody axe of the same height and length. The handle of the axe was made of white bone, and there were strange engravings of secret runes on the surface. There were flowing dark threads wrapped around the entire body. The shape of the axe blade was extremely chaotic. It was made of a mixture of broken bones, teeth, large intestines, and brains. There was also a functional eye embedded in the center, which was observing the situation outside. There wasn't just one intruder, but 3. Each of them was an existence that was close to legend. Sin turned into a weapon. Machinery as armor. The dragon as the main body. The 3 of them as one. This was the cooperation mode formed by the interaction of multiple worlds, and also a brand new combat mode that belonged to the dragon. Bullies. You're already at this level at the beginner stage of opening the door. As expected of an anomaly from World S01. He took a step forward. Draconic Flame Domain. The area within 10 meters turned into scorched earth, and draconic flames were constantly emitting from the crack. Using the heat provided by the domain, his fighting spirit soared. Balis directly attacked the 2 of them from the front. At the same time, a very strange thing happened. The liquid metal that covered Balis' body began to flow to the side, and quickly replicated a one metal clone holding the same sinful act. He intended to attack both Demps and Helen at the same time. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.